The first thing I did after my rebirth was to marry my wife's aunt, all because in my past life, our daughter and her first love son were kidnapped at the same time. The kidnappers forced Chloe to make a choice, allowing her to save only one. She hesitated for only a few seconds before choosing her first love's son without another thought. The next second, our daughter was pushed off the tall building and fell to her death. Witnessing all of this with my own eyes, I broke down completely and jumped off the building right after her. Now that I have a second chance at life, I refuse to torture myself any longer. I only want to draw a clear line between myself and Chloe. So, I knelt down in front of my parents and said with absolute sincerity, "Mom, Dad, about the alliance with the Vance family. I choose to marry Natalie Vance." Suddenly hearing me make such a request, my parents both looked utterly bewildered. "Logan, isn't Chloe the one you love? Natalie is Chloe's aunt." As if remembering something, my eyes flickered slightly, and my voice carried a hint of sorrow. "It's precisely because I know the consequences of loving her that I don't dare to love her anymore. Mom, Dad, I have never begged you for anything before. As the young master of a wealthy family who has enjoyed the family's glory, I know this alliance is a responsibility I must bear. I only have this one request. Please grant it." Looking at my forehead, which was bruised and red from bowing, my parents sighed helplessly and helped me up. "Since you've made up your mind, then your father and I will go to the Vance family to ask. The only issue is that Natalie holds immense power and high status, so she might not necessarily agree to this marriage. You need to be mentally prepared." While comforting me, my parents prepared the formal gifts and got ready to visit. The black sedan drove further and further away. I turned around and looked at the familiar furnishings in the living room, feeling that everything was somewhat surreal. Dazed, the phone on the table rang. As night fell, it was a text message from Chloe asking to meet up, along with a bar address. Recalling what had just happened, I also wanted to take this opportunity to make it clear that the person for the alliance had changed, so I rushed over. As a result, the moment I pushed open the private room's door, a bucket of cold water poured straight down, drenching me completely. The icy chill seeped into my skin, making me shiver uncontrollably. Laughter erupted from all directions. "Oh! Isn't this our young master of the Miller family? How did he end up looking like a drowned rat? Serves him right. Who told him to chase after Chloe every single day? An ungrateful, desperate simp. Deserves exactly this kind of ending." Chloe walked up to me with a cold expression, her eyes filled with utter disdain. "Are you really that impatient to marry me? Word about the alliance barely got out, and you immediately rushed to have your parents come to my house to discuss it. You've made the marriage a public spectacle throughout the city. Now everyone in our circle knows you and I are getting engaged. Are you satisfied?" I knew she had misunderstood. I wiped the water off my face, pushed back the wet hair clinging to my forehead, and looked at her calmly. "The alliance between the Miller and Vance families is set in stone. It makes no difference whose house they go to discuss it. But you don't need to worry, because this matter has nothing to do with you." Chloe froze for a moment, and then she sneered. "Has nothing to do with me? You're not trying to say that the person marrying you isn't me, are you? How ridiculous. Who else in the Vance family could marry you besides me?" Just as I was about to speak, the cracked open door was pushed wider. Austin rushed in, and upon seeing this scene, tears welled up in his eyes. "Chloe, I heard you're getting married. I came here specifically to wish you happiness. I wish you and young Master Miller a beautiful, blissful life together, and that you grow old together." Saying that, he rushed out with bloodshot eyes, leaving behind only the faint sound of crying. Seeing this, Chloe instantly panicked. She violently shoved away the people blocking her path, and chased after him. Having been pushed onto the coffee table, a gash opened up on my forehead. Blood flowed out profusely, looking extremely horrifying. A sharp pain throbbed from the impact, and as I watched the two figures fading into the distance, many scenes from my past life flashed through my mind. In my previous life, Chloe and I were childhood sweethearts who grew up together, and our bond was very deep. When we reached adulthood, and I heard my parents mention the family alliance, I thought about all those years of Chloe's meticulous care and protection for me, so I chose her without any hesitation. But, after hearing the news, her attitude toward me gradually transformed. It went from anger to coldness, and finally to outright disgust. I didn't understand the reason, but I still chose to marry her, thinking that things would slowly get better after the wedding. It wasn't until something happened to our child that I was in the study and stumbled upon tens of thousands of cherished photos of Austin that Chloe had hidden away. At that moment, I finally realized that the person she actually loved was her family butler's son. She simply couldn't get what she wanted due to the class difference. 2 years after Chloe got married, Austin married someone else too, but his marital relationship was never harmonious. Because of this, she drank herself into a stupor every day, mourning for him. And the day his wife died in a car accident was the happiest day of Chloe's life. I saw all of this clearly, and my heart felt utterly miserable. Yet I could only force myself to ignore it and focus entirely on raising our daughter to adulthood, until a kidnapping case dragged my daughter and Austin's son into danger. The kidnappers forced Chloe to make a choice and save only one. She hesitated for only a few seconds before choosing the boy who shared no blood relation with her. The next second, our daughter was pushed off the tall building and fell to her death. Witnessing all of this with my own eyes, I broke down completely and jumped off the building right after her. Now that I have a second chance at life, I refuse to torture myself any longer. I only want to draw a clear line between myself and Chloe. In the private room, the crowd was still laughing and joking around, making sarcastic remarks. Forced love never works out. Chloe doesn't want to marry a certain someone. So what? Even if they do get married, when the time comes and Chloe doesn't come home, some desperate simp is going to be complaining all alone at home? Amidst the wave of mockery, my phone rang. I picked it up to look, and saw a message sent by my parents. "Logan," Natalie agreed. "The wedding will be held in half a month." My parents had always been calm and composed, so the 3 full exclamation marks showed just how unexpected Natalie's agreement and how thrilled they were. I suddenly let out a sigh of relief. I forced myself to stand up and looked at the crowd who were watching me like a joke. The corners of my eyes and brows filled with an unprecedented determination. Whether I am happy after marriage or not is none of your concern, and has nothing to do with Chloe either. Please tell her that I will be getting married in half a month, and the bride will not be her. After leaving the bar, I went to the hospital to have my wound treated. When I returned home, I took everything related to Chloe and cleared it all out, sealing it away in boxes. My parents, who happened to walk in, stared in a daze upon seeing this. "Logan, have you really let go of Chloe? Do you not like her anymore?" Seeing me nod without a shred of hesitation, my parents finally put their minds at ease. They smiled and said, "That's good then. Natalie is busy abroad." But today, the Vance family joined us on a video call and finalized the marriage. Compared to Chloe, Natalie is mature and proper, which indeed suits you much better. It's just that her reputation precedes her, making this marriage a bit of a stretch for us. So we hadn't even thought about approaching her before. We originally thought she wouldn't agree, but to our surprise, she accepted very quickly. My eyes instantly turned red. From the very moment I made up my mind, I knew Natalie would definitely agree. In my past life, due to the difference in seniority, the younger generation of the wealthy families were all afraid of her. I was no exception, so I rarely interacted with her, hardly ever meeting outside of family banquets. I only knew that she threw herself entirely into her work, single-handedly building a commercial empire that stood at the absolute peak, and she remained unmarried throughout her life. It wasn't until she died by suicide at 35, and her belongings were being organized, that a stack of love letters was found in her bedroom. Every single letter was addressed to my star. No one in the Vance family knew who it was meant for. Only I knew that on the day I was born, the sky was filled with stars, and star meant bright and fresh. It was a childhood nickname given to me by the closest elder in my family. I never knew that this immensely powerful, unattainable woman had secretly loved me for her entire life. Now that heaven has given me a chance to start over, I am willing to give us both a chance. While I was lost in thought, my parents pulled out a gift box and placed it in front of their son, their voices filled with deep gratification. "Logan, tomorrow is your birthday." Natalie couldn't make it back in time, so she had her assistant bring a gift out from her study. "Take a look and see if you like it." The moment I opened it, I saw a brilliantly dazzling ring. This was the most expensive diamond ring sold by Sotheby's auction house in the past 50 years, named Plucking Stars. I had been fortunate enough to see it once, and it had been unforgettable ever since. I never imagined Natalie would send such a priceless gift. Instantly, a wave of warmth surged to my heart. In my previous life, ever since word of our alliance got out, Chloe had never given me a single gift again. I had long since forgotten what it felt like to receive a gift from someone who loved you. The next day, my birthday banquet started promptly at 7 in the evening at the most luxurious hotel. The guests offered their congratulations, and with my marriage alliance finally set in stone, a huge weight was lifted from my chest, so I carried a genuine smile on my face, until midway through the party, a sudden commotion erupted among the crowd, and everyone looked toward the entrance in unison. I followed everyone's gaze, and saw Chloe actually bringing Austin along to attend my birthday banquet. But this wasn't even the ultimate humiliation. The absolute worst part was a whole group of Chloe's friends, marching in grandly while carrying a massive plaque, walking straight toward me. Right in the center of the plaque were 4 massive words, hypocritical and shameless, dedicated to Logan Miller. The guests eagerly crowded forward to watch the drama, whispering and gossiping among themselves. My face turned deathly pale. I clenched my fists tightly, staring intently at this crowd of troublemakers, my voice freezing cold. What is the meaning of this? Several of them sneered and looked over, deliberately raising their voices to shout. Well, we should be asking you that. Didn't you just say yesterday that Chloe wasn't the bride? Then why is it that as soon as Chloe got home, she found out her family had already started preparing for the wedding? This game of playing hard to get. Who plays it better than you, young Master Miller? I think these words fit you perfectly. I told you he was just talking tough yesterday. He's chased after Chloe for so many years. Everyone knows he simped so hard he threw away his own self-respect. Now he suddenly claims he doesn't love her and won't marry her. But it's just a stalling tactic. In the Vance family, Chloe is the only one from your generation. If you don't marry her, who else could you possibly marry? The hall instantly erupted into a wave of mocking laughter. Chloe also looked at me with a cold face. Logan Miller, stop doing such hypocritical things, and don't even think about using this to get my attention. When we get married in the future, aside from the title of my legal husband, I will give you absolutely nothing else. I had heard her say these exact words in my past life as well, and she really hadn't lied back then, during our 7 years of marriage. Aside from the legal status, I truly had nothing at all. The surrounding people whispered intensely at her words, and my face turned stark white for a brief moment. Taking a deep breath, I raised my voice. Chloe, I don't need you to give me any status. Listen closely. The person I'm marrying is not you, nor is it anyone from our generation, but rather the name hadn't even been spoken aloud yet. Before it was abruptly interrupted by an unexpected accident, Austin suddenly covered his nose, dense red rashes breaking out all over his face. With tearful eyes, he leaned against Chloe's shoulder. Chloe, I'm so itchy. Why are there so many hyacinths here? I'm allergic to hyacinths. Hyacinths were my favorite flowers, which was why they were arranged everywhere, as far as the eye could see in the hall. Hearing the increasingly ragged breathing of the person in her arms, Chloe's face filled with panic. She kept calling out Austin's name, and finally ordered her people to take him straight to the hospital. Before leaving, she left behind only 2 sentences. One was to me, Logan Miller, after we get married, you are not allowed to plant or display hyacinths anywhere. The other sentence was to her group of friends, tear this entire banquet hall apart after I leave. You got it, Chloe. We'll make sure the job is done. Before the words even faded, the group of people began grabbing chairs and tables like bandits, smashing everything around them. The birthday cake was smeared all over the floor, and shards from wine glasses and dishes flew everywhere. The fresh flowers were trampled into mud by the fleeing guests. Stop it. What right do you have to ruin my birthday banquet? Stop? You're going to marry Chloe anyway. Since you listen to your wife so much, naturally, whatever Chloe says, goes. Ha ha ha! I screamed until my throat went hoarse, but I couldn't stop the violence at all. Instead, it only brought down endless mockery upon me. In the end, all the guests left, and my birthday ended in a complete, chaotic mess. In the days that followed, with rimmed red eyes, I locked myself in my room, never stepping foot outside. When my parents found out about the outrageous things Chloe had done, they felt even more relieved that preventing their son from marrying her was the right decision. They clamored to confront the Vance family, but they were stopped by me, who had finally stepped out of my room after several days. No matter how rushed the wedding preparations were, I didn't want to cause any more complications. After reasoning with my parents, I finally went out carrying a design blueprint. During those days when I locked myself away, I hadn't been wasting my time stressing over Chloe. To me, she had long since become an irrelevant stranger. The reason I stayed in my room was to personally design a wedding ring for Natalie. I knew the Plucking Stars ring was incredibly valuable, so I quietly wanted to use this heartfelt gesture to reciprocate her deep affection. I handed the blueprint to the butler, asking him to find a master craftsman to carve and create it by hand. But when the agreed completion date arrived, the wedding ring was nowhere to be seen. I went to inquire, only to find out that Chloe had come by a few days ago to pick out jewelry. She had fallen in love with this ring at first sight, and after asking a few questions, she took it directly away with her. She left behind only one sentence. "It's for me anyway, so there's no need to make Logan come pick it up." The staff members were also aware of the alliance between the Miller and Vance families, so they hadn't stopped her. My heart sank instantly to rock bottom. I hurried over to the Vance residence to find Chloe, intent on getting the ring back. Consequently, the moment I walked through the door, I saw Austin sitting in front of a pile of delivery boxes. "Chloe, you hit it for me again," and secretly cleared out my shopping cart. "You're so good to me, how can I ever repay you?" "I'm happy to do it. I don't need you to repay me. Besides, I've told you several times that you're not allowed to call me Mrs. anymore." Only then did Austin flirtatiously call out her name, Chloe. Watching the two of them exchange longing glances, I didn't even blink as I quickly stepped inside. Hearing the footsteps, Chloe turned around and saw me. Frowning, she asked, "What are you doing here?" "Give me back the wedding ring you took." Looking at my hand reached out toward her. Chloe raised her eyebrows. "It's gone." "Gone?" My gaze sharpened, and my tone grew a bit heavier. "What do you mean by gone?" While Chloe was still trying to think of an excuse, Austin, who was sitting on the floor, spoke up with a timid expression. "Mr. Miller, I saw on the internet that a wedding ring is the easiest tool for opening delivery boxes, so I used it to open a few hundred packages. Now the ring is completely scratched up. Do you still want it?" Saying that, he opened his palm, revealing the heavily scratched and ruined ring. Chloe had actually taken my wedding ring just for Austin to open delivery boxes. Instantly, a ball of rage ignited in my chest, rapidly spreading through my entire body. I could no longer control my emotions. With bloodshot eyes, I looked at the two people in front of me who didn't care at all. "Chloe, what right do you have to take my things without permission? And Austin, what right do you have to ruin it like this? Don't you two know how to spell the word respect?" Seeing me break down so completely over just a ring, Chloe's great mood was entirely ruined. Her tone carried a wave of impatience. "This wedding ring was meant for me anyway. What are you making a scene here for? By the way, I've decided we'll just get the marriage certificate without hosting a wedding, so it's pointless for you to design a wedding ring. Don't waste your efforts." Angered by her dismissive and arrogant attitude, I clenched my fist tightly and stated clearly once more, "Chloe, this wedding ring was never meant for you. If it's not for me, who else could it be for? Logan Miller, that's enough. You're overacting." While Chloe snapped back, she carelessly tossed the ring away and walked out the door, pulling Austin along. "Don't waste your time lowering yourself to his level, Austin. Didn't you say a few days ago that you wanted to learn how to drive? Come on, I'll teach you." Watching the two of them walk away, boundless anger and resentment surged into my heart. I wanted to chase after them, but I couldn't split myself in two, so I could only crouch on the ground first to search for the ring. It took me a full half-hour before I finally found it in the flower bed. After carefully putting it into my pocket, I didn't stay for another second and turned around to leave. It was already too late to remake a new one from scratch, so I had to find someone to repair it and see if it could be restored to its original state. Consequently, the moment I stepped out of the villa, I heard a strange noise next to my ear. Looking up, I saw a car driving straight toward me. My eyes widened in an instant. With a heavy crash, I was thrown 10 meters away, collapsing into a pool of blood. Austin, who was driving, pretended to be terrified and stepped out of the car in tears. "It's over. It's over. I just started learning how to drive and accidentally mistook the brake for the gas pedal. Now I've caused a huge disaster. Mr. Miller is bleeding so much Chloe, am I going to get into trouble? Seeing the large section of stone steps dyed red with blood, Chloe knitted her brows, pulling Austin into her arms to comfort him softly. It's fine. He always loves to play the victim. Right now, he's just putting on a show. Ignore him. He'll wake up in a bit when he can't keep acting anymore. Don't be scared, Austin, and don't cry. Hearing these words in my fading consciousness, I only felt a deep chill run through my entire body, and tears could no longer be held back from flowing down. Chloe, I thought that even if you didn't love me, since we were childhood sweethearts for so many years, you would at least have a tiny shred of affection for me. As it turns out, just to comfort Austin, you can completely disregard my very life. Why on earth did I fall in love with you in my past life? I struggled, wanting to call for help, but the moment I gripped my phone, the last bit of strength left my body entirely. Boundless darkness surged forward, submerging me completely. When I opened my eyes again, it was already the next day. Not long after I woke up, the doctor came in holding my medical chart. He spoke up sternly. You were in a car accident, so why weren't you brought to the hospital immediately? Why did you wait until you lost this much blood to come to the hospital? Aren't you guys acting completely reckless? Recalling the scene before I lost consciousness, my lips parted slightly, but I could only give a bitter laugh, not knowing how to answer. Was I supposed to say that my childhood sweetheart was too busy comforting another man, which was why she left me to die? The doctor didn't press further, but simply continued, Where is your wife? Have her handle the hospitalization paperwork for you. The effects of the anesthesia hadn't worn off yet, and I subconsciously blurted out, She's abroad. Before my words even faded, the ward door was pushed open. Chloe, who had just entered, stared intently at me. Who is abroad? Isn't she right here? The person who signed the surgical consent form must be his wife, right? Didn't I tell you that someone needs to watch over the patient 24 hours a day while he's unconscious? Why did you suddenly disappear? Thankfully, nothing went wrong. Go and finish processing the paperwork then. The doctor said this, while tearing off the hospitalization form and handing it to her, and then he left the room. She is not my wife. Seeing that the doctor had already walked away, I was still explaining. For some reason, Chloe felt a flash of discomfort in her heart. All right, I already brought you to the hospital, so stop playing this game of hard to get. Know when to stop. She placed the bag in her hand onto the table, and after seeing the gauze wrapped around my head, her tone softened slightly. It's still hot. Eat it while it's warm. Looking at the familiar logo, I froze. In the past, every time I fell ill and couldn't eat anything, Chloe would travel dozens of miles and wait in a long line, just to buy red bean pastries from this shop to cheer me up. But whether in my past life or this life, ever since she found out about the alliance, she had never been this gentle again. Looking at the steam rising from the bag, I didn't make a single move. I gently closed my eyes. The next second, I heard Chloe's somewhat hesitant voice. About yesterday, Austin didn't do it on purpose. Don't make things difficult for him. So in the end, it was still for Austin. I opened my eyes once more, actually laughing until tears came out. Chloe, he intentionally harmed me. I will absolutely call the police and make him face the punishment he deserves. The expression on Chloe's face froze instantly, and she became somewhat infuriated. I already bought food for you, and I've apologized on his behalf. Logan Miller, don't push your luck. Seeing how quickly her facade crumbled, I smiled once again, staring at her with rimmed red eyes, in a silent standoff, as if knowing my stubborn streak. And after an unknown amount of time, Chloe rubbed the space between her eyebrows, and let out a heavy sigh. Fine. Let's both take a step back. Didn't you cause such a massive scene just because you wanted me to marry you? If that's the case, I will give you a wedding. The wedding that both families are preparing right now. The one you've been dreaming of. I'll go. Are you satisfied now? Seeing the expression of forced endurance on her face, I lowered my gaze, unable to keep from looking back at the past. In my previous life, Chloe hadn't even shown up to that wedding. She despised me, and she despised that wedding. But now she was finally relenting, and yet it was still for Austin's sake. Back then, even though she didn't love me, she had still married me, mostly because she was threatened by her family. After all, Austin was her only weakness, and since he was just a butler's son, he was very easy to control. They weren't afraid he wouldn't comply. But in this life, I will absolutely never repeat the same mistake. So, I made it completely clear, no need. The bride was never you anyway. Whether you go or not makes absolutely no difference. Chloe was completely infuriated by me. Just as she was about to lose her temper, her phone rang. Seeing the name, Austin, she forgot about everything else, and turned around to leave immediately. Watching the door slowly close, I picked up my phone and dialed 911 to report the incident. But after I explained the whole situation clearly, I received an unexpected piece of news. Mr. Miller, we are very sorry. This car accident was deemed just an accident, and your fiancé signed a waiver of liability on the spot, so we cannot open a case. Hearing this result, I only felt a suffocating tightness in my chest that I couldn't shake off. In a fit of rage, I smashed my phone against the wall. The pain spread from my limbs straight to my heart. In the end, I could no longer hold it in, crying out loud all by myself in the empty ward. In the days that followed, Chloe came to the hospital almost every single day, bringing fruit and nourishing soup, and even bringing in several doctors for a joint consultation. My emotions had already stabilized, so I treated her as if she were invisible. Seeing my cold attitude, she also began to panic a little, not knowing what kind of tantrum I was throwing this time. But seeing that I was a patient, she could only force herself to endure it. Until the day I was discharged, I absolutely refused to get into her car. Unable to control the annoyance in her heart any longer, she questioned me. I've already made compromises. How much longer are you going to keep making a scene? If you keep acting like this, aren't you afraid I'll just throw caution to the wind and refuse to marry you? Knowing that no matter how much I explained, she wouldn't believe me, I simply lowered my head and pretended not to hear. In Chloe's eyes, this was me backing down, and only then did her mood gradually improve. Her tone softened up quite a bit. Don't make a scene like this anymore in the future. My aunt is coming back today, so I'm taking you to a family banquet. She is the head of the Vance family, and tonight, in front of the entire family, she will announce our marriage alliance. Since I promised you, I will definitely attend. When the time comes, I'll give you a grand wedding. You should finally be satisfied, right? Only then did I look up at her. In my tone, which had been indifferent for days, there was now a hint of excited joy. Your aunt is back in the country? Seeing that I had returned to normal, Chloe curled her lips, looking completely knowing. Yeah, are you really that eager to marry me? Don't worry, I'll attend the wedding. Just don't do this anymore in the future. Playing hard to get is fine once or twice, but if you do it too much, I'll get sick of it too. Chloe said this while pulling open the car door. I knew that even if I explained, she wouldn't listen, so I simply didn't bother. After sitting in the passenger seat, I stated directly, I want to go home, freshen myself up, and change into another outfit. Seeing how much importance I attached to this banquet, she assumed it must be because I loved her so much that I wanted to look my best when meeting her. Aunt! Chloe raised her eyebrows, agreeing to my request for once. Once everything was ready, the two of us returned to the Vance family's old estate. Many people came to the banquet. They weren't surprised to see me, and all greeted me. After returning their greetings one by one, I sat in a corner, waiting for Natalie to make her appearance, because I didn't know what our reunion would look like. I was absent-minded the entire evening, my heart thumping wildly. Chloe, who was beside me, quickly noticed that something was wrong. She looked at me with a displeased expression. I'm right here. What are you daydreaming for? I'm warning you for the last time. I've already agreed to marry you, so you are not allowed to put on this face anymore. Otherwise, I can back out at any moment. I couldn't help but want to counter her, but I stopped myself when the words reached my lips. Anyway, she would soon find out that the bride wasn't her, so there was no need to waste my breath. A few minutes later, the door to the hall finally opened. Everyone turned around in unison, looking forward with anticipation. But the person who appeared was definitely not Natalie. Instead, it was Elder Vance, walking unsteadily onto the stage. To announce to the public, before Natalie set off, she was involved in a minor car accident and missed her flight. Currently, she is still abroad, so she won't be attending today's banquet. Hearing this news, I abruptly stood up, my tone filled with anxiety. Grandpa Vance, how is she? Is it serious? Elder Vance waved his hand to comfort me. It's fine, and it won't delay the main event, Logan. Rest assured. Chloe frowned and pulled me down to sit, reproaching me in a low voice. Even though the alliance is already a certainty, you haven't officially entered the Vance family yet. Don't show such intense concern for my aunt. Just to show off your status, it's improper. I was at the end of my patience, and was just about to speak the truth plainly, when Elder Vance cleared his throat, and the entire venue fell silent instantly. Gathering everyone here today is mainly to announce the alliance between the Miller and Vance families. The wedding date has already been set for exactly 7 days from now, at the Non-Pingvia. One of the marriage partners is the young master of the Miller family, Logan Miller. During the elder's resonant announcement, Chloe received a text message from Austin. No one knew what he sent, but her expression changed drastically, and she quickly got up and left the venue, without listening to the rest. The other partner is the head of our Vance family, Natalie Vance. This completely unexpected choice of bride sent the entire venue into an absolute frenzy, with everyone whispering non-stop, "Did I hear that right? It's Natalie, not Chloe?" "Yeah. How could it be the family head, Natalie? Isn't she completely untouchable? Why would she marry a young kid?" The crowd's discussions almost brought down the roof of the entire hall. Though everyone was shocked, out of respect for Natalie's status, they didn't dare say too much. They all sent their congratulations to me as I stood up to acknowledge them. After the banquet ended, I still couldn't let go of my worries about the car accident, so I made a special effort to see Elder Vance. The elder patted my shoulder, his face full of joy. Natalie sent over some photos. I took a look, and it's just a minor injury. She'll recover very soon. Logan, you just focus on preparing with peace of mind. Only with these words did my heart ease. For the next 2 or 3 days, I stayed home preparing invitations, wedding attire, the dowry, and other items, completely shutting out the outside world. During this time, I received quite a few messages from Chloe's friends, but I didn't open a single one, until one day, right before resting, I accidentally clicked into them, and realized they were all talking about the same thing. Chloe got a bit hurt and is hospitalized. She's in room 609 at the downtown hospital. Aren't you coming to see her? Remember to bring some chicken soup that Chloe loves to drink. What's the meaning of not replying to messages this whole time? Are you still playing this outdated game of hard to get? There's no end to it, is there? Logan Miller, what the hell are you doing? You're just a desperate simp, so what are you pretending for? Get over here right now. Seeing all this now, I only found it hilarious. I took a few seconds to type out a line of text and sent it over. Chloe got into a car accident. She has caregivers, she has you guys, and she has Austin. What does it have to do with me? After the message showed it was successfully sent, I opened my social media feed. Scrolling all the way down, it was filled with hospital selfies posted by Chloe. In my memory, she almost never updated her social media feed, so I was a bit surprised to see this. But I didn't take it to heart either. I took one look and exited, then reached out to the Vance family members I had added a few days ago to ask a lot about Natalie. Upon learning that Natalie liked to eat fish, I went to my family's fish pond the very next day, planning to catch a few fish to practice my cooking skills so that I could cook them for her in the future. Just as I picked out the ones I liked and turned around, I saw someone who had somehow snuck in. It was Austin, walking straight toward me. He twirled his fingers, looking incredibly innocent. "Mr. Miller, is it because you found out Chloe hurt? Her hand fighting someone just to protect me. So, you're angry? It's all my fault. If you want to blame someone, blame me. I know you are her fiancé, and I'm just the butler's son. Not worth her going through so much trouble." Listening to his manipulative, passive-aggressive tone, I frowned, turning my body around to leave. Austin forcefully grabbed my hand, and right before my bewildered eyes, he flashed a provocative smile. Before I could even process his sudden change of face, I saw him raise his hand and slap himself hard across the face several times. He began to cry hysterically. "Mr. Miller, whether you hit me or curse at me, I'll accept it all. I only beg you not to have a conflict with Miss Vance. As long as you go see her, no matter what you do to me, I will absolutely never fight back." Seeing his uncharacteristic behavior, my eyelid twitched, and I realized something was wrong. Just as I was trying to pull my hand away and leave, I saw Chloe, her face full of rage, barge in with a group of people, surrounding us completely. "Logan Miller, why did you hit Austin? I already promised you that we would hold the wedding. Don't be so ungrateful. I looked at her coldly. I didn't hit him. There's a security camera over there. Go look at it yourself. After saying that, I intended to leave. To my surprise, Chloe, who was blinded by rage, glared at me, unable to listen to a single word. Her voice was cold as frost. I used to think you were just a young master, with a temper that was too spoiled, but now it seems you are utterly beyond saving. After saying that, she directly ordered her friends to pin me down, and then she took Austin's hand. Austin, I won't allow you to suffer any injustice. Slap him back. At first, Austin choked up and said he didn't dare, but once the crowd around him began encouraging and backing him up, he stopped pretending. Using every bit of strength in his body, he delivered a vicious slap. With a loud crack, my cheeks swelled up high, and my not yet healed forehead also began to seep blood. A stinging pain shot through my nerves, leaving a ringing sound in my ears. Seizing the moment, while no one was looking, Austin gave a hard push, shoving me, while I was still dazed, right into the pond. He then pretended to be kind-hearted, claiming he wanted to save me. Chloe cast a cold glance over, leading her people to leave straight away. Ignore him. The water is so shallow, it won't drown anyone. I flailed around in the water all by myself for a long time, and it wasn't until my strength was entirely depleted that I was noticed and pulled out. After returning home, I came down with a high fever that very night, which still hadn't broken by the next day. I had many dreams about the past, with tears clinging to the corners of my eyes, muttering nonsensical words continuously. I feel so sick. Chloe, didn't you go buy red bean pastries for me? Why aren't you back yet? It's my fault. I'm sorry, Chloe. I promise you. From now on, I will absolutely never hide. The love letters other boys send you again. Chloe, who happened to push the door open and walk in, heard these long-past memories. She was momentarily stunned, recalling the time when I used to follow her around, and how she had been perfectly willing to pamper me, and her heart couldn't help but soften a little. We were doing perfectly fine, yet you had to make a scene like this. If you hadn't forced this marriage, I would have treated you as a little brother for the rest of my life. In my hazy state, I woke up upon hearing this sentence. The moment I opened my eyes, Chloe had already reverted back to that dismissive and contemptuous attitude from a few days ago. She spoke up in a cold voice. Grandpa Vance heard you were sick and insisted that I come see you. Don't flatter yourself. I was forced to come, otherwise I would absolutely never have stepped foot here. The next second, Austin walked in timidly, beginning to apologize in a flustered manner. Mr. Miller, what happened yesterday was my fault. Please forgive me. I had taken a slap for no reason, and then been pushed into the lake, and only now had I finally recovered a little bit, but I no longer had the energy to argue. Stumbling, I propped myself up, preparing to kick them out, when I noticed Austin, staring intently at my neck. I couldn't help but touch my neck, where a necklace was hanging. It was a gift Chloe had given me on the day of my coming-of-age ceremony. Chloe naturally noticed it as well. She knew this necklace was incredibly important to me. Narrowing her eyes slightly, she said, Austin, I'll have a custom one made for you after we go back. Before she could even finish her sentence, it came to a grinding halt. I directly yanked the necklace off and threw it over, and then I forced myself up, bringing out the box I had packed away a while ago. Placing it right in front of Chloe, watching my cold actions, Chloe's heart suddenly tightened. What is the meaning of this? I shoved the box directly into her arms, and said softly, We're getting married soon. If my future wife sees these old things you gave me, she might misunderstand, Chloe. I'm returning all of this to you. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other. Chloe assumed my old habit was acting up again. With a sudden sweep of her hand, she knocked all the items out of the box, looking at me with a grim, darkened face. You were the one who hit Austin first, yet here you are throwing a tantrum. Isn't your future wife going to be me anyway? What do you mean, nothing to do with each other's? Let's see if you can keep up this act on our wedding day. After venting all the suppressed resentment in her heart, in one breath, she pulled Austin along and stormed off. Looking at the absolute mess on the floor, I smiled lightly, called the staff over, and had them throw this pile of junk straight into the trash can. The day before the wedding, I received a text message. There was only one line on it. I'm back. See you tomorrow. There was no signature, and no contact name saved, but I knew it was her. Natalie Vance. My previously wavering heart suddenly settled into absolute peace, and I had a wonderful night's sleep. At 10 o'clock the next morning, the Vance family's wedding fleet arrived at the Miller residence, with video cameras following right behind them. This wealthy family alliance would be broadcast live to the entire city, opening it up completely to the public. Chloe opened the car door and went upstairs. Upon seeing me dressed in a white suit, a flash of amazement swept through her eyes. For some unknown reason, she suddenly felt as if she had seen this exact scene somewhere before. She stood in a daze for a moment, until the person beside her reminded her, and only then did she extend her hand out to me. But I didn't take it, staring at her with a perfectly calm face, my tone completely flat. "Chloe, you've come to the wrong place. You should be sitting in the guest section." These words instantly infuriated Chloe. Her face darkened completely. "Here you go again. Don't you know today's wedding is being broadcast live to the whole city? Do you have to keep making a scene nonstop and throw away the dignity of both our families?" I didn't argue with her any further, and walked downstairs all by myself. Chloe's empty hand clenched tightly into a fist. She took a deep breath, forcing down her emotions as she followed closely behind me. Just as she was about to step into the back seat of the wedding car, her phone rang. 1 minute later, she slammed the car door shut, looking at me through the window. "I have something very important to take care of, so I can't make it to the wedding venue. Go over and tell the elders on both sides that the wedding is canceled." She originally thought that, once she said these words, I would look heartbroken and humiliated, and tears would come streaming down, but I simply looked at her with total composure. "I told you, it doesn't matter whether you come to this wedding or not, because the bride isn't you." Seeing my entirely nonchalant and dismissive expression, Chloe left in an instant. A sudden flash of panic shot through Chloe's heart. But she still said in a deep voice, "I already told you the wedding is canceled. If I, the bride, don't show up, do you really want to become the laughingstock of the entire city?" This time, I was too lazy to even speak a word, and directly told the driver to drive. Soon, the massive fleet of cars drove away from the scene. Chloe didn't have the time to soothe my petty temper either, so she hailed a car by the roadside. By the time she rushed to the hot spring villa in the suburbs, and saw Austin surrounded by a group of friends in the center, her brows knitted together instantly. "Didn't you say Austin was in danger?" The group of friends pulled him inside, laughing and joking. "We lied to you. If we didn't say that, how could you possibly run away from your wedding? We just wanted to see what kind of joke Logan Miller would make out of himself today." Hearing these words, Chloe's expression changed drastically. She quickly pushed away the hand resting on her shoulder and turned around, preparing to leave. "Stop messing around." Austin grabbed her hand, blinking his reddish eyes, his tone filled with pleading. "Chloe, my head really hurts a little. Can you stay and keep me company, please? Anyway, this place is very far from the wedding venue, so you won't make it even if you head over now." This was indeed the truth. But what about Logan Miller? While she was hesitating, her friends had already clamored to turn on the live broadcast stream. On the screen, everything was proceeding step by step. Seeing that I stubbornly insisted on going through with the wedding instead of canceling it, everyone's face filled with a mocking laugh. "He still hasn't called it off yet? When it starts and there's no bride, it'll be so humiliating. Logan Miller must be too desperate to marry, to joke around with the dignity of both families. It'll be hilarious when he can't wrap things up." Chloe didn't know what on earth I was thinking, and her face grew so dark with rage that it looked like it could pour rain. She was just pondering whether she should call the Vance family to give them a heads up when a sudden exclamation came from beside her. "The wedding is starting." Chloe looked up instinctively and saw my father holding my arm, escorting me to the center of the stage. I stood all by myself under the spotlight, standing alone for a very long time, yet the bride still didn't appear. The live stream comment section was flooded with question marks and bullet comments saying the bride had run away from the wedding. The people in the room laughed so hard they doubled over, unable to even straighten their backs. Chloe, who had long anticipated this outcome, had a cold face, her tone laced with contempt for my stupidity. She couldn't bear to watch any longer and wanted to turn off the stream, but just as her hand pressed the exit button, she heard the master of ceremonies' voice, "The bride enters." The next second, the tightly shut doors swung open. Under the gaze of thousands, Natalie Vance, dressed in a wedding gown, embedded with sky blue diamonds, slowly made her grand entrance. She faced the entire venue and nodded slightly to acknowledge them. As her sharp, unreadable gaze swept across the room, it gave off an incredibly powerful, oppressive aura. The entire hall fell silent in an instant, so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. The guests at the scene were all stunned. No one had expected that for the alliance between the Miller and Vance families, the bride would actually be Natalie Vance. The group of people in front of the screen who were waiting to see a good show were also frozen in place like stone statues. Chloe clenched her teeth tightly, the veins on her forehead bulging as her voice filled with absolute fury. "Aunt Natalie? There must be some mistake here." The moment these words came out, everyone in the room snapped out of it and began to chime in stutteringly. Right. The master of ceremonies must have made a mistake. How could CEO Vance possibly marry Logan Miller? The difference between them is like night and day. Logan Miller wasn't even wanted by Chloe, so how could he possibly be worthy of CEO Vance? It's just a mix-up. While the group of people was still denying it, Natalie had already walked to the center of the stage. The wedding had already entered the next phase, the vows. "Miss Natalie Vance, are you willing to take Mr. Logan Miller to be your husband? To love him and be faithful to him, whether in wealth or poverty, youth or old age, to stay with him always, and grow old together?" Upon hearing Natalie solemnly utter the words, "I do," the entire room fell into a dead silence. Everyone's mouth fell open, staring at everything before their eyes in absolute disbelief. Chloe's mind went completely blank, and the blood across her entire body felt like it was flowing backward. She grabbed a set of car keys at random, flipped over the wine table in front of her with one swift motion, and rushed out like crazy, completely ignoring the shouts behind her. Only one thought remained in Chloe's mind. Logan Miller was clearly her fiancé, and he could only marry her. He absolutely could not marry her aunt. She slammed the gas pedal to the floor, running over a dozen red lights in a row. By the time Chloe rushed to the scene, the wedding banquet was already winding down. The guests had mostly dispersed, leaving only the relatives of the Miller and Vance families behind. Amidst the crowd, she spotted at a single glance Logan Miller, who was surrounded in the center, talking and laughing. She went straight forward and pinned down his hand, her tone filled with an unprecedented panic and anxiety. "You're coming with me." Before I could even speak, the members of both families spoke up first. "Chloe, what are you doing? Your aunt's wedding with Logan is already over, so why did you wait until now?" "To show up? Logan and Natalie still have to return to the old estate later to serve tea. What are you disrupting things for?" "Chloe Vance, let go of him right now." "It's fine if you fool around normally, but today is your aunt's wedding. If you keep causing trouble, I'll teach you a lesson." While parents from both sides were reprimanding her, Chloe still stubbornly held her ground, increasing the strength of her grip. My wrist was squeezed bright red. I frowned slightly and was just about to speak, when I heard a gentle yet magnetic voice echo from behind me. "Let go." There were only 2 words, but Chloe let go of her hand as if she had received an electric shock. She didn't even dare to turn her head back, stubbornly calling out, "Aunt Natalie." Natalie didn't give her a response. The crowd automatically parted to form a path, and she walked straight to my side, lifting my hand to gently massage it. Only then did she cast a glance at Chloe and say, "This is your uncle." The air seemed to freeze completely. Chloe was extremely resistant to this title, but under Natalie's powerful, commanding aura, the hairs all over her body stood on end, feeling as if ants were crawling all over her. That sense of fear buried deep within her blood compelled her to quietly call out that title, "Uncle." In front of both families, I responded to her generously. "We are family from now on." Each word, spoken one by one, felt like a heavy stone blocking Chloe's chest, leaving her unable to catch her breath. She clenched her fists tightly and stared at me fixedly, emotion surging deep within her eyes. I could feel her reluctance and rage, but I didn't care. I took Natalie's hand and asked her about her upcoming schedule with a smile on my face. Natalie checked the time, and when she looked up, a rare hint of tenderness surfaced in those eyes that were usually devoid of any emotion. She said, "Because the flight was delayed during the transfer, the morning tea service was skipped. According to the rules, we should go to the old estate to make up for it first, but you've had a tiring day. So, Let's push these formalities to tomorrow. Let's head back to rest first, is that all right? Hearing these words, the elders of the Vance family all teased with a smile. Oh, things really are different once you get married. You already know how to dote on your husband. Usually, Natalie looks so cold and distant, but it turns out she actually knows how to speak so tenderly. Our youngest daughter has finally started a family too. The entire family had gathered together, and Elder Vance, his face glowing with delight, waved his hand. He said in a loud voice, "As long as you two treat each other with respect and live a good life together, it doesn't matter whether we get to drink this tea or not." Logan woke up early this morning to get ready. He must be completely exhausted. The rest of you shouldn't disturb the newlyweds either. Disperse, disperse, everyone. Amidst a wave of teasing remarks, Natalie took my hand and led me out of the venue. Watching the two figures fading into the distance, Chloe's tightly clenched knuckles cracked audibly. All the resentment, fury, and painful emotions that had been suppressed within her body poured out completely after the crowd dispersed. What exactly is going on here? For the alliance between the Miller and Vance families, shouldn't I be the one marrying Logan Miller? Logan's father and mother, who were still immersed in joy, were startled by her angry shout and looked at their daughter with deep displeasure. What kind of madness are you throwing now? Half a month ago, when the Miller family visited, Uncle Miller, Aunt Miller, and Logan specifically named you as the one he wanted to marry. Your aunt had never even mentioned your name. How could it possibly be your turn? Austin, who had arrived late along with a group of people, entered just in time to hear this conversation, and they were all stunned. Looking at the large crowd that had suddenly barged in, including Austin, Chloe's father and mother had already guessed the reason for Chloe's absence today, and their expressions darkened significantly. This morning, your aunt texted saying her transfer flight in Macau was delayed, so we asked you to help pick up the groom, but you just ran off halfway through. Fooling around with a bunch of bad influences? Where is your sense of propriety? For today's wedding, every single relative from both the Miller and Vance families was present except for you. If it hadn't been for your Uncle Miller helping to smooth things over, the elder would have definitely disciplined you. From now on, Logan is your uncle. You better watch your behavior for me, and not do anything inappropriate. Otherwise, if your aunt gets angry, no one will be able to protect you. Amidst these relentless reprimands, Chloe's face gradually turned deathly pale. She had never imagined that one day I would become her uncle. Her shoulders shook uncontrollably, and she closed her eyes in utter despair. Those past events that she had once mocked and sneered at flashed before her eyes scene by scene. Me getting drenched like a drowned rat in the bar, yet still firmly clarifying the truth. The slightly small wedding ring I designed, which she had to struggle immensely just to put on. The naturally nervous emotion I couldn't help but show. At the family banquet upon hearing her aunt's name. Until this very moment, Chloe finally understood. It turned out everything was true. I had never lied to her. She had simply been immersed in the past where she was fervently pursued by me, and so she completely ignored my changes. From the day of the engagement, I was already no longer the same person I used to be, but the person who was clearly throwing a fit just the day before about wanting an alliance with her. Why did he look like a completely different person? Overnight? Perhaps what changed was not the person, but the attitude. The things she did in the past had hurt my heart too deeply, so I decided to give up on her. Still, marrying her aunt was probably just another tactic of mine to play hard to get. Countless thoughts swirled within Chloe's mind. She felt as though her head was about to explode, and she clutched her hair desperately. Seeing her like this, Austin pulled her into his arms with a look of deep heartache comforting her nonstop. When Chloe's father and mother, who were just about to leave, saw this, their expressions became extremely hideous. A butler's son actually dared to dream of climbing up to social climb into the Vance family, even though I knew about Natalie's feelings. Because the two of us had barely any interaction across both lifetimes, I still felt a bit awkward when we were truly left alone together. Natalie also noticed my mood, and spoke in a warm voice. "Everyone calls you Logan." Not expecting her to speak up suddenly, I nodded gently, picking up the conversation. "Yeah, but my grandparents call me Al. You can call me that too." Right in the middle of my sentence, my face instantly flushed bright red. For some reason, I recalled that stack of love letters I had only caught a single glimpse of, and I lowered my eyes rather guiltily. As if remembering something, a faint glimmer flashed through Natalie's eyes, a tender smile playing on the corners of her lips. Ow! For some reason, I could catch a trace of delight in her tone. Unable to control my curiosity, I secretly turned my head, wanting to verify it, and crashed right into her deep, soulful eyes. The moment our gazes met, I was automatically drawn in, staring at her blankly. The next second, I heard her say something that completely shattered my perception of her. Al is very good, and Logan is quite nice too, but I think husband is still the best. After all, that title is one of a kind. Hearing those last words, my heart began to beat rapidly like a pounding drum. I didn't know how to respond, so I could only give a muffled murmur, hurriedly shifting my gaze away and lowering my head. Although the air conditioner was running in the car, I was so hot that my entire body was drenched in sweat. Our intertwined hands felt completely clammy. Natalie let out a soft chuckle, thoughtfully turning the temperature down by a few degrees while handing me a handkerchief. I took it to wipe my sweat, while listening to her continue talking to herself. Even though we have a difference in seniority, and I am 7 years older than you, if we count it broadly, we can still barely be considered peers. The driver, who had worked for the Vance family for over 30 years sitting up front, couldn't hold it in anymore upon hearing this. He couldn't help but chime in. CEO Vance, how on earth are you calculating that? That is way too broad and forced. Natalie glanced at the person, who was grinning widely in the rearview mirror, her tone carrying a bit of helplessness. Uncle Lou, don't undermine me. All right, I'll stop talking, okay? You go on, go on. Only then did Natalie pull her gaze back, picking up where she had left off. Even though we didn't have much interaction before, we are husband and wife from now on. You don't need to be so afraid of me. Just like a normal married couple, say whatever is on your mind. I will humbly listen to my husband's advice and fulfill my duties as a wife properly. This was the very first time I had ever heard her speak such a long paragraph, and it was also the first time I had seen her using such a relaxed and natural tone in a public setting to chat. For a moment, I still wasn't quite used to it, so I couldn't help but ask, say whatever is on my mind. Seeing Natalie nod her head, I plucked up my courage and asked a question. Why did you agree to this marriage alliance with me? Natalie froze for a few seconds, but she quickly recovered her usual composure and countered with a question of her own. I can answer that for you, but before that, I want to ask you a question too. Out of all the potential choices for the alliance, why did you choose me? Now it was my turn to have a headache. Fortunately, my mind worked quickly, and I soon figured out a few reasons. I am the only son of the Miller family, and you're the head of the Vance family. An alliance, you know, is all about a powerful combination. Besides, our age difference isn't that big either, so we definitely have common ground and can hit it off. There's no need to worry about getting along after marriage, and you are just so outstanding. I figured I'd try asking for the best option first. If you really agreed, wouldn't I be scoring a massive bargain? Natalie could tell with a single listen that I was merely talking nonsense, and that this wasn't what I truly thought in my heart. But there were some things she truly wanted to get to the bottom of. So after I finished rambling on, she pressed further with another question. In your heart, if the first choice for the alliance was me, would you really have begged to marry Chloe instead? The interior of the car fell instantly into dead silence. Hearing that name, I couldn't help but remember those gray memories of the past, and my gaze flickered slightly. Natalie realized that I didn't want to talk about this person, and just as she was about to change the subject, she heard my voice, which had dropped significantly in pitch. No. It was just 2 flat, decisive words. After saying that, I raised my head and stared fixedly at her. My eyes filled with a determination I had never shown before. If you hadn't agreed, then I definitely would have found a way to cancel this alliance altogether. Hearing this answer, Natalie let out an inexplicable sigh of relief. She rubbed her fingertips together and asked 2 more questions that were incredibly important to me. Is Chloe not good enough? Didn't you love her very much? Within her barely audible voice, there was a subtle trace of complex emotion that was difficult to discern. But I caught it. I knew exactly why she was asking this question, and I also knew that my answer would dictate the dynamic of how the 2 of us would get along in the future. Natalie was a proud and restrained woman. She would absolutely never allow herself to become a substitute for someone else's unrequited love. In my past life, She was able to bury those feelings completely. For over 30 years, until they were only discovered after her accidental death. From that alone, one could see her almost pathological level of self-control. If she knew that I was reborn, and had only chosen her to avoid repeating my past mistakes, she would definitely continue to keep those feelings hidden away forever. That was not what I wanted to see. So I told a lie. I actually only liked her face from the start. I figured since it was an alliance anyway, marrying an outstanding, gorgeous woman would be pretty nice, which is why I used to chase after her. But you're so omnipotent, so you must already know that the person she loves is a me, right? I just didn't have that kind of insight back then, and I only found out about it recently. I am the young master of the Miller family. How could I possibly tolerate my wife having another man in her heart? So without any hesitation, I decided to dump her. Besides, you are 100 times, 1,000 times better than her. So I just thought I'd give it a shot. Anyway, everyone in North Capital knows that when it comes to Logan Miller chasing women, he will stop at nothing and completely disregard his own pride. Although my tone sounded light and casual, Natalie, however, could see the faint glint of tears in the corners of my eyes. She had navigated the treacherous waters of the business world for years, and had dealt with all kinds of wicked, deceitful characters, so she could easily see right through a person's heart. Yet, facing me as I lied to her, she couldn't bring herself to say a single harsh word. She only wanted to pull me into her arms, and she actually did exactly that. After all, we were already husband and wife now. The things she had to worry about before were no longer an issue. She gently patted my back, her tone softer and warmer than the spring sunshine in March. That's called being brave, not stopping at nothing. It was clearly an incredibly simple sentence, yet it acted like an eraser, smoothing out the jagged scars that had been engraved in my heart for years. I no longer suppressed the emotions that caused me pain. And inside the car cabin, there were only the newlywed couple holding each other close. Once my emotions subsided, recalling the scene from just a moment ago only made me feel deeply embarrassed. How could I just break down and cry in front of Natalie? How was I supposed to explain this? While I was pondering, Natalie spoke up first instead. Weren't you curious about why I agreed to the marriage alliance? My reasons are exactly the same as yours. First, it's a powerful combination. Second, because you are very good. Third, I am getting older too, so it's time to start a family. The moment I heard that, I knew she was just humoring me. In my past life, for my sake, she was nagged by her family, but remained unmarried even at 35. So I mumbled a complaint in a low voice. Liar. A flash of surprise crossed Natalie's eyes, and she nodded non-committally. Well, you lied to me too. So we're even now, 1-1. At the exact same time, Chloe was relentlessly chugging alcohol down her throat. Even when she drank until she threw up, she refused to set down her glass. Beside her, Austin had cried until his eyes were completely swollen, persuading her in a hoarse voice. Chloe, please stop drinking, okay? If you keep drinking like this, you're going to end up in the hospital. Don't hurt yourself like this over an ungrateful man who only cares about social climbing, okay? Hearing these words, Chloe's somewhat hazy, bloodshot eyes regained a fraction of clarity. She suddenly grabbed Austin by the collar, her voice dripping with drunken slurs. What do you mean, ungrateful social climber? He only married my aunt just to make me angry. We've known each other for over a decade. How could I not be clear about his little thought process? He just wants me to coax him a bit, that's all. I'm going to go find him right now. If I just crook my finger, he'll definitely come running back. Saying that, Chloe brushed aside the liquor bottles, stumbling and swaying as she got up and walked toward the door. Austin bit his lip, following right behind her with a face full of resentment. After the taxi driver pulled up at the South Bay Villa, Chloe directly punched in the passcode and barged inside. In the quiet night, the continuous, heavy pounding on the door shattered everyone's peaceful sleep. The butler opened the door and saw that it was her, hurriedly calling the staff to help support her inside, while preparing to go upstairs to inform Natalie. As the night breeze blew over her, Chloe sobered up just a tiny bit, insisting on causing a scene as she followed upstairs and slammed heavily on the bedroom door. Natalie, who had been woken up by the noise, opened the door, and seeing her in this completely disheveled, drunken state, her face turned cold in an instant. Take her away to sober up. Receiving the order, the butler hurriedly led the staff to drag her into the bathroom. Only Austin was left standing alone in the hallway. He lowered his head, trying his hardest to reduce his presence, his voice sounding as though he was right on the verge of tears. "Good evening, CEO Vance." Natalie swept a cold glance over him. Just as she was about to question him about what had happened tonight, she heard a set of footsteps coming from behind her. "What's all the racket about?" Seeing me walk out while rubbing my eyes. A touch of warmth rose within her previously icy eyes. She turned around and took my hand, signaling to me, "You go back to rest first. I can handle this right away." Hearing the familiar voice, Austin couldn't help but look up, and there he saw the very person Chloe had been muttering about all night long, now nestled comfortably in another woman's embrace, being carefully protected and pampered. Thinking about how all his painstaking schemes during this period had completely fallen through, and how the person he hated the most was now living the exact life he envied above all else, Austin was filled with absolute hatred. He couldn't resist stirring up trouble. "Mr. Miller, Chloe knew you were getting married today, and spent the entire night heartbroken. No matter how angry you are with her, you shouldn't have used CEO Vance as a shield to hurt Chloe's heart so deeply. She already agreed to marry you, so how could you break your word like this?" Having not seen him for a few days, Austin's ability to drive a wedge between people and speak in such a manipulative, passive-aggressive manner had truly improved day by day. I raised an eyebrow, and just as I was about to speak, I heard Natalie's deep, commanding voice ring out. What a sharp-tongued mouth. Tomorrow, I will definitely have to ask my sister-in-law how she managed to train such a clever and articulate servant. Hearing the words, sister-in-law, a cold shiver ran completely through Austin's body. Chloe's parents had always despised him, and had tried multiple times to find an excuse to fire his entire family, only to be stopped by Chloe every single time. If Natalie were to personally take this complaint to their door, fearing that even if God himself showed up, no one would be able to protect his family anymore. Therefore, he frantically began to stammer out an explanation, his words tripping over his tongue. "No, that's not it, CEO Vance. Everything I said is the absolute truth. The one Mr. Miller has always wanted to marry is our young lady. Everyone in North Capital knows it." Before he could even finish speaking, I loosened up my wrists and cleanly delivered 2 sharp punches straight to his face. I used every bit of my strength, hitting Austin until he saw stars. "What right do you have to hit me?" Blindsided and dazed from the beating, Austin also lost his mind, slumping onto the floor and screaming as his emotions spiraled completely out of control. I cast a casual glance over at him. "One punch is for when you drove that car and hit me last time, and the other punch is to return the favor. Is that really so hard to understand?" Hearing these words, Natalie's gaze sharpened instantly. When she looked down at the person on the floor, the sheer gravity of emotion harbored within those eyes made a cold shiver run straight through Austin. There was no anger, nor was there any contempt. There was only a chilling indifference, as if she were looking at a mere insect. In an instant, he felt his scalp go entirely numb, feeling for the very first time that death was right on his doorstep. Just as he was on the verge of a total breakdown, the butler walked out with Chloe, who had mostly sobered up from her drunken stupor. The moment she stepped out, she spotted me at a glance, stumbling and rushing forward in an attempt to grab me, only to have her hand violently slapped away by Natalie. Her long-spoiled young miss attitude made her want to blow up in a fit of rage on instinct. Yet, the moment she looked up and saw that familiar face, the impatience on her face instantly turned into utter terror. Aunt Natalie, toward this niece who wasn't that much younger than her. Natalie had never been one to assert her authority as an elder, but at this exact moment, her mood was exceptionally foul, and so she spared absolutely no feelings, reprimanding her directly in front of all the servants. "Chloe Vance, you've brought your drunken tantrums right into my house, and you even brought along a dog that bites. Are you really that forgetful? Or did you completely forget that I told you? The Vance family does not tolerate useless, freeloading bums." The entire atmosphere of the villa dropped to absolute freezing point because of this single sentence. No one dared to breathe a single heavy breath, everyone shrinking back as they tried to reduce their presence, so they wouldn't accidentally cross the head of the family. Except for me, this was the first time I had ever seen Natalie get this angry, and it was also the first time I had seen the usually lawless and untamable Chloe Vance. disciplined so thoroughly into submission. I couldn't help but marvel a bit at the sight. Truly, everyone meets their match. Now that I had someone backing me up right behind me, there was no longer any need for me to hold back or endure. I might as well lay everything out perfectly clearly. Chloe, since you'll have to call me uncle from this day forward, then there are certain things I will just state plainly. I have absolutely no desire to be dragged into the dramatic, cloying love story between you and Austin. The two of you suit each other perfectly, but none of it has anything to do with me. Don't show up in front of me ever again for no reason in the future. I have my own family now, and I am still your elder. Even if we happen to cross paths down the line, I hope you can maintain the most basic level of respect for me. I'm not asking you to be subservient or deferential, but you still can't lack the proper etiquette. Only in this way will you prevent people from gossiping and saying the Vance family failed to raise its daughters properly. Don't you agree? Those few sentences left Chloe shaking uncontrollably with pure rage. Just as she was frantically trying to find words to fire back, she heard another voice that struck absolute terror into her heart. Did you fail to understand? Or did you understand perfectly? Seeing Chloe bury her head in submission to admit her mistake, Natalie was exhausted as well. Leaving behind a final sentence, she took my hand and led me back to our room. If you understood, why haven't you left yet? Do you need me to call the servants to escort you out? Chloe didn't dare to linger for a single second longer, tugging Austin along as they fled downstairs in a panicked rush. The villa settled right back into its peaceful quiet. I let out a yawn, and just as I lay back down on the bed, Natalie nestled directly into my embrace. What exactly was that car accident about? Was that wound on your forehead from that time? Tell me about it. I didn't want her to worry, so I tried to brush it off with a laugh. It's fine. It's all in the past now. Look at me. Aren't I perfectly healthy? Natalie picked up her phone to contact the hospital, to arrange a full physical checkup, while knitting her brows to cut off my words. Getting injured is never a small matter. Hearing the raw worry and deep concern in her tone, the back of my nose pricked, and I was so moved I nearly cried. But I still held back the urge to weep, recounting every single thing that had transpired during this period, telling it all to her from beginning to end. By the afternoon of the very next day, Chloe was violently shaken awake from her hazy sleep by someone. Clutching her throbbing, dizzy forehead, she opened her eyes, fully intending to explode in anger, only to see Austin sobbing hysterically right in front of her. Chloe, the madam wants to fire my father and mother, and kick our entire family right out of the Vance estate. Please, you have to think of a way. The blurred, hazy images lingering in her mind instantly vanished without a single trace. The moment she heard this, she bolted upright in bed, her tone packed with utter disbelief. That's impossible! Saying that, she grabbed her phone, intending to call her mother to find out exactly what was going on. But the moment the call connected, and her mother heard the reason for her call, she hung up the phone straight away. There was absolutely no room for discussion on this matter. Hearing this absolute, unyielding response, Austin wept even louder, clinging to her and begging her non-stop. Miss Chloe, please try to persuade the madam again, okay? Our family did absolutely nothing wrong. I only wanted to stay by your side, that's all. You must understand how I feel, right? Seeing him completely break down like this, Chloe's heart ached terribly for him. After tracking down her mother's current location, she took Austin's entire family along and rushed straight toward the old family estate. The old estate, which was usually tranquil, had quite a large crowd visiting today. Even from a great distance, the sound of voices could be heard clearly. Chloe had no idea what was happening inside, so she originally wanted to wait until her mother came out to speak. But after standing there for barely 3 to 5 minutes, she couldn't withstand Austin's repeated, tearful entreaties, and forcefully barged right inside. The very instant the living room doors were thrown open, the people in the grand hall turned their heads one after another, witnessing the elders and youth of the Vance family, along with my parents, all gathered together under one roof, while Natalie and I were currently kneeling before Elder Vance to serve him tea. At this sight, Chloe realized immediately that this was absolutely not the right time. She was just about to lead her people out and leave. But Austin's mother, who was completely incapable of reading the room, wiped her tears, and fell straight to her knees in front of Chloe's father and mother. She wept and wailed through her tears. Madam, my husband and I have served you and the master for over a decade. and I watched the young lady grow up with my own eyes. Why are you firing our entire family? Without giving us a single word of explanation? If there is anywhere we haven't done well, just tell us, and we will correct it. In front of such a massive public gathering, having the servants stir up such a chaotic scene made Madame Vance's face darken entirely. Enough. Whatever the issue is, we will discuss it when we get back. This is the old family estate. You are being presumptuous. Hearing it was the old estate. Austin's mother actually cried with even more vigor, even kneeling straight in front of the living elder to air her grievances. In an instant, the wonderful tea-serving segment turned completely into a courtroom for wailing about injustice. The 3 members of the butler's family insisted on having the elder step in to judge for them. Chloe's father and mother were dizzy with pure anger, yet due to proper etiquette and public face, they couldn't forcefully stop them. Elder Vance had always been generous, and had never mistreated the household staff, so upon hearing this, he was bound to demand a clear explanation. Seeing that her grandfather was personally looking into it, Chloe also knew that a major disaster had struck, and she no longer dared to utter a single sound, frantically throwing desperate looks at Austin. But Austin, who was entirely immersed in his own misery, assumed that she was planning to abandon him completely. He simply followed his mother's lead, kowtowing repeatedly on the floor. Seeing that the situation was about to escalate to an entirely unmanageable state, Natalie smoothly picked up a glass from the table and smashed it right in front of Austin's family. With a loud crash, glass shards flew everywhere, and the grand hall, which had been thrown into a foul, chaotic mess, fell into absolute, instant silence. After gently supporting me to sit down, Natalie walked up to the elder, bowed her head slightly, and said, "Dad, why don't you, Uncle Miller, and Aunt Miller, go upstairs to drink some tea and chat? Leave this matter to me to handle. I will definitely give you and our relatives a proper explanation." With these words from her, Elder Vance was naturally at ease, and left together with his in-laws. Only the Vance family members remained in the living room. Natalie sat in a seat of honor, looking down at the 3 people kneeling on the floor, her tone devoid of any emotion. "Austin, I remember you are quite articulate, so you shall represent the family, and explain everything perfectly clearly." Facing this family head who made all the subordinates tremble at the mention of her name, Austin was filled with absolute terror deep down. But he also knew that with so many people present now, this was the only opportunity he could grasp. So he wiped away the tears on his face, knelt on the ground, and recounted the cause and course of the entire incident from beginning to end. After listening, the Vance family relatives, along with the bodyguards at the door, and the servants, all showed utterly speechless expressions. It was already the 21st century. Weren't they just getting fired? It wasn't as if they couldn't find another job, so was it really necessary to make such a scene? Only Natalie had absolutely no change in expression from start to finish. She invited her brother and sister-in-law over, and asked them to have someone call all the household servants over. In front of the entire gathering, she questioned these servants about their thoughts regarding the firing of Austin's family. When this topic was brought up, the previously silent crowd stepped forward one after another, laying out everything they held in their hearts. I think the madam did nothing wrong. Austin relied on the young lady's affection to boss everyone around and show off his power at home all day. He even dared to take the madam's jewelry and clothes, threatening us not to say a word, and saying that if the madam asked, we should say the young lady took it and broke it. I also think firing them is great. Austin's mother bragged every single day that her son was bound to social climb into high society eventually. She pushed all her chores onto our heads, and slacked off without doing any work every day. The father was just like that too. He would even steal gifts brought by guests. When he got caught, he claimed the young lady gave him permission. It's happened God knows how many times. The faces of Austin's family members turned deathly pale amidst this wave of continuous accusations. Chloe, who was getting anxious enough to explode, also had a subtle change in her facial expression after listening to everything. The rest of the Vance family members were either filled with righteous indignation or stared with cold, harsh eyes. Not a single person harbored any pity for these 3 individuals anymore. I, who had been watching coldly from the sidelines the entire time, picked up my teacup, took a few sips, and a flash of coldness swept through my eyes. In my past life, this scene had also taken place. However, at that time, I hadn't held a wedding, Natalie was far away abroad, and Chloe hadn't accompanied me. Chloe had barged in together with Austin's family, and the advanced-aged elder Vance. Had his heart softened by the weeping of Austin's family, reprimanding Chloe's father and mother on the spot? Although Chloe's parents admitted their mistake back then, it wasn't long after they returned that they found another excuse to drive Austin's family away anyway, and made them pay compensation. Because of this, Austin's family ended up owing money to loan sharks. Driven into a corner, Austin's family could only marry Austin off to the debt collector to clear the debt. In the 3rd year of his marriage, his wife passed away, and my destiny welcomed a turning point because of it. Now that I started over and changed my marriage partner, the entire direction of the story underwent a complete transformation. Under the exact same scenario, with Natalie presiding, I believed everything would be completely different, and the reality turned out exactly as I had anticipated. After Chloe's parents also clarified the entire matter in public, Natalie directly announced the outcome. Everyone has heard the testimonies clearly, and the material evidence should be present as well. Brother, sister-in-law, I believe based on the current situation, you should report this to the police as illegal theft to recover the property, and claim damages for the stolen items. What do you think? Her words instantly snapped them awake. Chloe's father and mother hurriedly ordered someone to call 911, knowing exactly what an astronomical price the items they stole and damaged would amount to. Austin's father and mother completely lost their minds, kowtowing heavily onto the floor to beg for mercy. Chloe's father and mother, who had been caused to lose all their dignity, showed absolutely no mercy. Hearing the approaching police sirens, Austin crawled on his knees over to Chloe's feet, pleading with her in a broken, trembling voice. But Chloe, who had witnessed the entire process with her own eyes, had no pity left in her heart. The look in her eyes as she stared at Austin was no longer gentle like before. Since things have reached this point, from now on, the rest of her words got stuck right in Chloe's throat. She watched in absolute disbelief as Austin's father rushed into the kitchen, grabbed a knife, and took his own life, her eyes widening in horror. "Dad!" Right as Austin's hysterical scream ended, his mother, filled with utter despair, followed suit and took her own life as well. "Mom!" Bright red blood splashed all over the marble floor. The dripping, continuous security footage had captured the entire sequence of events with absolute clarity. The police cleared the scene, finished taking statements, and were about to head back to the precinct with the bodies and Austin. Chloe held onto him tightly, refusing to let go under any circumstances. Austin collapsed in her arms, his eyes vacant and out of focus, having clearly suffered a total breakdown. Her heart ached for him after all, so she prepared to negotiate with the police, wanting to wait until his emotions stabilized before saying anything else. Natalie stepped in to stop all of this from happening. She brought over a copy of the surveillance footage, handed it to the detective, and made her request in a calm, measured manner. "Detective Zhang, this footage clearly captures the scene where Austin is suspected of attempting to murder my husband. I request to officially open a case for investigation." Hearing these words, the previously dazed and incoherent Austin snapped awake in an instant, screaming frantically out of control. "It wasn't me. That was just an accident. The police already cleared it up, and Chloe signed a waiver of liability for me too. You cannot hold me accountable for my mistake." As he defended himself with highly agitated emotions, Chloe also wanted to step in to help testify for him. Natalie didn't give her that opportunity at all. "Detective Zhang, my husband and the person who signed that document are merely friends. The waiver of liability at the police station holds absolutely no legal validity whatsoever. Furthermore, my husband himself insists on pursuing accountability and investigation. Do you understand my meaning?" Detective Zhang's face turned completely serious. He solemnly took the piece of evidence and prepared to leave with Austin. Chloe still wanted to block them, but she was stopped dead in her tracks by a single sentence from Natalie. "If you step out of this main door today, you will no longer need to bear the surname Vance. Our Vance family has no room for a criminal who colludes hand in glove with an attempted murderer. In addition, you were also present on the day of the incident, and the name signed on that waiver belongs to you. You will definitely be summoned by the police station down the line. I hope you state the actual facts, with absolute honesty. As for whether you are truly innocent or an accomplice, we will leave that to the police and the court." Chloe's face turned as white as a sheet of paper alongside his, not daring to utter another syllable. Seeing that she made absolutely no move to help, the final shred of hope was extinguished for Austin. Using every ounce of his strength, he broke free from the grip, pounced onto her body, and delivered a vicious punch straight to her face. His tone was packed with absolute despair. "Chloe Vance, to think you are actually such a weak, incompetent, cold-blooded, and heartless woman. I completely misjudged you. You deserve to be looked down upon by Logan Miller. You deserve to be dumped by him, and you deserve to be used by me. Ha ha ha. Let me tell you the truth. I never liked you at all. Every single sweet word I ever said to you was nothing more than a trick to fool you into transferring money to me and buying me gifts. This is the only bit of value you ever had to be used for. Aside from your money and that face, you are just a completely useless, good-for-nothing piece of trash. If I could have a second chance at life, I would definitely choose to stay away from her early on. Fortunately, heaven gave me that opportunity. This time, I finally grabbed hold of my own happiness. I would rather marry a servant girl than ever spare you another glance." The look in Chloe's eyes, which had still carried a trace of hesitation and pity, turned completely cold with every word and every phrase he uttered. For the first time, she realized that the person she had loved for so many years and protected for so long was actually just a vile creature. She shoved Austin away with force, her tone carrying an indescribable suppressed rage and pain. "Get out!" The police led the still struggling man away from the old Vance family estate. The moment the door slammed shut, Chloe felt as though all the strength in her body had been entirely drained. She suddenly turned around and happened to lock eyes with a familiar set of eyes. "Logan." I didn't give her any response. I reached my hand out to Natalie, who was beside me, my voice light and tender. "The matter is temporarily settled. It's time to serve tea to my parents." "All right." They've probably grown impatient from waiting. Watching the two figures walking away side by side, the light in Chloe's eyes gradually faded away, and a sharp pang of agony flared up in her chest. It hurt so much that her tears came rushing up. She could feel that something was being ripped away from her body, slowly drifting further and further into the distance. On the way back home, Natalie kept flipping through and looking over the hospital checkup report that her secretary had just delivered. She read the sentence stating, "Minor superficial trauma, internal organs and bones show absolutely no abnormalities," 6 or 7 times, before her heart finally settled into absolute peace. I smoothly took the report away and tossed it into my bag, my tone very light-hearted. "I already told you I was fine. You just insisted on taking me for a checkup this morning. Now you can finally rest assured, right? I just had to see the examination results with my own eyes. It's just that I can feel much more at ease by taking a bit more time." There was truth in these words. I nodded my head, and then I recalled an exceptionally important matter. "When exactly did you obtain the surveillance footage? From Chloe's villa?" "This morning," Natalie answered cleanly and promptly. This left me a bit bewildered instead. She didn't know? She doesn't need to know. After all, every single asset under her name must go through my hands. The house, the cars, the shares. None of them are an exception. Hearing this, a very strange thought suddenly popped into my head. Before I could even catch it, the sudden flash of inspiration vanished in the blink of an eye, leaving behind only a sense of oddity lodged deep in my heart. That failed to dissipate for a long time. But since everything was resolved, I was too lazy to look back on it anymore, enthusiastically asking Natalie if she wanted to try my cooking skills. She cast a surprised glance over at me, her tone filled with amazement. "You actually know how to cook?" At 21 years old, I naturally didn't know how. But in my past life, after we had our daughter, I learned a great deal from a nutritionist. However, I didn't dare to act too arrogant or pretend to be an expert in front of her, stating very humbly that I only knew a tiny bit. Once I entered the kitchen, I managed to fry that fresh, plump catfish until it turned pitch black. After thick smoke began billowing out of the kitchen, the confidence on my face transformed into total embarrassment. Racking my brain to find an excuse, I muttered, "The ones I know are all nutritional meals. Frying fish is a first for me, so it's perfectly normal to mess up, right?" Natalie forcefully suppressed her laughter, stating her full validation for my argument. "Then let's just stick to making nutritional meals in the future. It's better for both of us to eat healthy, to live a long life, and grow old together. It was clearly a sentence with an exceptionally wonderful meaning, yet hearing it brought a surge of melancholy to my heart. In my past life, I only lived until 35, and she passed away in that exact same year. The two of us combined couldn't even reach 100 years old. In this life, though our destinies have been rewritten, no one knows what lies ahead. Seeing the daze in my eyes, Natalie guessed that I must have thought of something unpleasant. She hurriedly changed the subject. But since you don't even know how to cook fish, why did you suddenly want to try your hand at it? This single sentence completely choked me up. I stammered, unable to give any solid explanation. In the end, somewhat annoyed, I took the black soot on my hands and wiped it right onto her clothes. I heard that you loved to eat it, which is why if I knew you wouldn't appreciate it, I wouldn't have wasted my efforts. Natalie coaxed me while helping to wipe my hands clean. Even if what my husband makes is burnt, I still love to eat it. How about we have someone deliver a few more fish? I'll help you watch the heat. We will definitely succeed today. With these words from her, my confidence grew immensely. Rolling up my sleeves once more, and after several hours of hard work, along with sacrificing 3 fish that died with their eyes wide open, I successfully stewed a pot of milky white fish soup. Natalie immediately took a photo to commemorate the moment, and posted the very first social media update of her life, the first bowl of fish soup stewed by my husband. Within a few minutes, the likes and comments exploded past 99 plus. Who stewed it? Logan? When on earth did he learn how to cook? None of us knew about this. So jealous, so jealous, so jealous. Someone come and stew a bowl of fish soup for me too. I want a sip as well. Next time, make my brother-in-law show off his skills. Chloe also happened to scroll past this update on her feed. She stared at the hand wearing the ring that was exposed at the corner of the photo, and the desolation in her heart reached an absolute peak at this very moment. This ring was originally supposed to belong to her. This bowl of fish soup was originally supposed to be cooked for her too. But now, everything was gone. She had nothing left, leaving her with only a lifetime of cold desolation. Where exactly did things go wrong? Chloe couldn't figure it out, so she could only drown her sorrows in alcohol. Once she was slightly buzzed, all those suppressed, forbidden feelings broke free. She couldn't resist calling my phone. It wasn't until the 4th call that it finally went through. She listened in a dazed, groggy state, her voice muffled and heavy. Logan, I was wrong before. I shouldn't have ignored you time and time again. I'm sorry. I know you have me in your heart. Marrying my aunt was just to throw a tantrum. At me, right? Divorce her and come back to my side, okay? I promise you that from now on, I will be completely devoted to you, she murmured in a low voice, pouring out every single one of her unspoken thoughts perfectly clearly. But the other side remained completely silent from beginning to end. This endless silence made Chloe feel somewhat frantic and unsettled. Logan, why aren't you saying anything? Honey, where's the hairdryer? Hearing the faint, familiar voice of another person over the phone, Chloe's breathing stops dead. The next second, she heard Natalie's voice right next to the phone, exceptionally clear. Hold on, I'll bring it to you. After a gentle response, her tone turned brutally icy. Chloe Vance, your urgent priority right now is to give a proper explanation to the police precinct rather than offending the uncle you have insulted time and time again. With a sharp beep, the call was hung up. Chloe's heart couldn't stop plunging straight into the dark night. On the other side, Natalie was currently holding the hairdryer, blowing my hair dry for me. While playing with my phone, I asked casually, "Did someone just call?" Natalie nodded her head, telling me the truth flatly. Chloe got drunk again, and called to throw a drunken fit. I gave her a good lecture on your behalf. Using the word lecture on Chloe felt a bit out of place to me. But remembering that she and I are now relatives, a wonderful, soaring sense of triumph suddenly bloomed within my heart. I couldn't help but want to get a clear answer. From your tone, it sounds like you lecture her quite often. But aren't you only 6 years older than her? Seeing the curiosity written all over my face, Natalie let out a soft chuckle. When she was in kindergarten, she was way too mischievous. She deliberately pulled away a chair, causing the elder to take a hard fall and suffer a fracture, leaving him hospitalized for half a month. He disciplined her thoroughly. From then on, whenever she saw me, it was like a mouse seeing a cat. So it left a psychological trauma. I finally understood the reason. She's so afraid of you. But how do you view her? Natalie's hand paused slightly, a wave of complex emotions flashing through her eyes. After a long silence, she carefully considered her words and gave her answer. Too impulsive, not mature enough, and unable to take on heavy responsibilities. It was a very candid evaluation. Toward Natalie's spot-on judgment of character, I was somewhat amazed, and I couldn't help but want to ask about her view of me. This time, she hesitated for an even longer period. Smart, rational, decisive, and most importantly, you have good taste. Having lived across 2 lifetimes, this was the very first time I had ever heard someone use these words to describe me, but only I knew that all of these were lessons I had paid for with blood and tears. 7 years of marriage plagued by silent treatment, a daughter who died tragically, and a life bound to a sickbed, trapped in endless depression. Even though all of it belongs to the distant past now, the moment I think about it, lingering fears still grip my heart. I held Natalie tight, listening to the sound of her heartbeat, and only then did I slowly unpack and digest those emotions. Everything is a brand new beginning. As the days passed one by one, on the day the first snow arrived, Austin, who carried multiple charges such as theft and attempted murder, was sentenced by the court to 6 years of fixed-term imprisonment. When the news reached Chloe, she was dead drunk, not taking this matter to heart at all. During these past 6 months, she immersed herself in a life of drinking to forget her misery. Rarely having a moment of sobriety, no one could persuade her out of it. Every time she got completely wasted, she would endlessly mutter my name. Her friends looked at each other in dismay, yet not a single one dared to contact her. To be precise, no one dared to provoke Natalie. After all, the media had captured photos of us, honeymooning abroad multiple times, looking like newlyweds whose affection was at its peak. Right before New Year's Eve this year, Natalie brought me back from our honeymoon to celebrate the new year. During the family banquet on New Year's Eve, she announced a piece of wonderful news to the entire family, with a face full of beaming smiles. I'm pregnant, and the doctor says it's twins. Amidst a chorus of congratulations, Chloe completely lost her composure and smashed her wine glass. The entire family turned their heads to look at her one after another. Her face was stark white, and using every ounce of strength in her body, she managed to squeeze out the word "congratulations" from between her teeth. Every single second became agonizingly difficult to endure. After barely 10 minutes had passed, Chloe casually found an excuse and left the venue in a rush. That night, she couldn't sleep, nor did she drink or cry. She sat in a corner, reminiscing about the past. As the incandescent light illuminated the room, she stared blankly at all the things in the cabinet that I had given her. The glass jar filled with 999 paper stars I folded by hand when I was 10. The scale model I spent over half a month assembling when I was 16. The brooches and cufflinks I designed myself when I was 20. As she kept looking, Chloe's eyes turned red. A wave of intense pain spread through her entire body, her heart feeling as though it were being squeezed tightly by a pair of hands, leaving her unable to catch her breath. Covering her face, her tears slid down through the gaps between her fingers, drenching her sleeves. From this very moment, she finally understood the meaning of only learning to cherish something after it's lost. Even though the babies were only 3 months old, Natalie had already started picking out names. She looked through a dozen or so names, for both boys and girls, complete with childhood nicknames, and handed them over for me to see. Setting down the parenting book in my hand, I took just a single glance and was immediately drawn to one of them. I picked up that slip of paper, staring at the name Dream Vance written on it, a misty layer of tears rising in my eyes. How did you think of picking this name? Although she didn't know why I was feeling sorrowful, Natalie immediately pulled me into her arms, comforting me softly. Is it no good? Then we won't use this one. Take a look at the others. Saying that, Natalie reached out to pull the slip of paper away and discard it. I stopped her, pressing the slip of paper tightly against my chest, smiling through my tears. No, let's use this exact one. We will definitely have a daughter, and when the time comes, her name will be Dream. I spoke with absolute certainty. Natalie raised her hand to wipe away the tears at the corners of my eyes, handing over another slip of paper. Then our other child shall be named River. Hearing this, only then did I realize that something was amiss. Dream Vance was my daughter's name in my past life, and back then, it was decided by Elder Vance. But hearing this pair of names she picked out, I suddenly realized with a shock that the name Dream seemed to have been chosen by her all along. I recalled my previous life, when I took my child to the old estate to visit the elder, and Natalie, who had been abroad all that time, happened to return to the country. When entering, the two of us ran into each other at the door. After offering my greetings, I intended to take my leave first, but she uncharacteristically called out to stop me. "You came back with the child all by yourself? Where is she?" Back then, Chloe was still immersed in the devastating news of Austin's marriage, drinking herself to sleep every single night, so I wouldn't see her once in half a month. My heart felt bitter, yet I still had to cover up for her. She's been busy lately, and I didn't want to disturb her work, so I just came back alone. Even though so many years have passed, I still remember the look Natalie gave me back then. Her gaze was heavy with dark, unreadable clouds, intertwined with a shred of deep, hidden pain. I couldn't read it back then, but thinking back on it now, my heart is filled with mixed feelings about my past life. Back then, I possessed a heart full of stubborn, blind courage that refused to turn back until hitting a dead end. She, too, kept her heart full of thoughts hidden away with absolute secrecy. The two of us ended up missing out on each other for so many years. 7 months later, Natalie gave birth to twin daughters. After discussing it with Natalie, our eldest daughter, Dream Vance, would inherit the Vance family business in the future, while our younger daughter, River Miller, would inherit the Miller family business. During the months of Natalie's pregnancy, while keeping her company, I also helped resolve her workload for the upcoming 6 months. Therefore, after the children were born, Natalie had plenty of time to help take care of them. Coupled with the assistance of my mother, Natalie thoroughly enjoyed her leisure time. Once she finished her postpartum recovery month, the two of us went back to the old estate holding our children. The elder was absolutely overjoyed, taking the jewelry and ornaments left behind by the late matriarch, splitting them into 2 equal parts, and gifting them entirely to the 2 babies. The other elders of the Vance family all prepared lavish gifts, and Chloe's father and mother even transferred ownership of the private amusement park under their name, saying it was a welcoming gift for their granddaughters. I remember that this amusement park was originally under Chloe's name. I subconsciously cast a glance over at her, only to find that after not seeing her for a few months, she had become so haggard that she was almost unrecognizable. Perhaps sensing my gaze, Chloe raised her head, her bloodshot eyes flickering a few times, before shifting her gaze away once more. Natalie also followed my line of sight to look over, knitting her brows slightly. During the year since she married me, she rarely inquired about Chloe's matters, but she would occasionally hear rumors. Even though Natalie disliked her spoiled young miss attitude, she was still her older brother's biological daughter after all. Furthermore, she was the head of the Vance family. By all accounts of reason and emotion, she couldn't simply stand by and watch Chloe degrade herself like this. So, after the family banquet concluded, Natalie called her into the study. No one knew what was said, but when she came out, her facial expression looked much better, and her eyes had regained some vitality. Seeing her pull herself back together, the heavy hearts of the elder and Chloe's parents finally settled. On the way back home, I ultimately couldn't suppress my curiosity. "Honey, what did you two talk about in the study?" Natalie adjusted the small blanket over the children, holding my hand gently in her palm. I gave him the Jinchuan project. Seeing the confusion written all over my face, Natalie patiently explained it to me. The reason he spends all day drinking to forget his misery is simply because he has lived a life of wealth and comfort for too long, becoming too deeply entangled in romantic emotions to extricate himself. Giving him something to do and keeping him busy means he won't have time to let his mind wander, preventing him from drinking himself into health issues one day and worrying his parents. Winter gave way to spring, year after year. The 2 little children gradually grew up, babbling and learning to speak until they could call out to mom and dad. Ever since we got married, Natalie, who used to be known as a workaholic, began living a 9-to-5 lifestyle, making it a rule to get off work precisely on time. Every day, the very first thing she did after work was to follow my instructions, buying back all kinds of desserts and toys, while picking up a bouquet of flowers along the way. Before she even stepped through the door, the 2 little ones would hear her footsteps and swarm around her, calling out "Mom" and "Dad" non-stop. The female CEO, who was usually fierce and resolute in the business world, was completely helpless when facing the joint assault of her daughters. One moment she would be holding the older sister to play on the swings, and the next moment she would be taking the younger sister to play with the toy train, unable to rest for even a single second. After being tortured like this for 4 or 5 years, even Natalie couldn't take it anymore. As soon as the children reached the appropriate age, she sent them off to kindergarten. On the first day of school, after waving goodbye, and waiting for the figures of the 2 little girls to disappear behind the gates, she let out a long sigh of relief, and led me away by the hand. Seeing her acting so impatient, I tutted twice and teased her with a smile. Back then, I don't know who it was that said, having 2 daughters was wonderful, and that they wanted to accompany them through every single moment of growing up. They even said they wanted to open a kindergarten right at home. It's only been a few years, yet you already can't handle it? Natalie massaged the space between her eyebrows, deeply repenting for her ignorance and naivety back then. Neither of our personalities are particularly hyperactive or lively. How did both of our children end up more energetic and rowdy than the last? Regarding this matter, I had a lot of authority to speak on it. I stared intently at her, and spoke with gravity. Isn't it because you spoil them too much? Every time I try to discipline them a little, you step in to smooth things over. How could they possibly calm down? If you ask me, you brought this torment entirely upon yourself. After being thoroughly lectured, Natalie didn't dare to utter a single word back. Seeing her taking the criticism in complete silence, the driver, Uncle Lou, laughed hysterically. Sir, ever since you married CEO Vance, her status in the household has truly gone downhill day by day. Who could have ever imagined that a person who used to keep a straight face with everyone in the past would become such a gentle and soft person now? Natalie shook her head with a face full of helplessness, unable to form any counter-argument. I said with a beaming smile, Uncle Lou, don't look at her frowning and looking miserable right now. In reality, she is enjoying it thoroughly. That's because, sir, you don't know that. The employees at the company are all incredibly grateful to you. They say that ever since CEO Vance started a family, she finally realized the importance of home life, so no one has to work overtime anymore. Everyone follows CEO Vance and leaves the moment the clock strikes. Since that's the case, Uncle Lou, why don't you pull the car over to the side of the road and get off work too? Since the boss had spoken, Uncle Lou didn't hesitate or linger either. He quickly parked the car well and handed the keys right over. Natalie sat in the driver's seat and punched an address into the navigation display screen. I didn't know what kind of stunt she was pulling this time, asking casually, what are we going to Mount Yanan for? A date, of course. The weather is so beautiful, and I heard a hot spring villa just opened up over there. It'll be nice to go look at the autumn foliage. I had originally intended to go back home and catch up on some sleep, so I raised an objection to this unannounced itinerary of hers. Natalie softened her voice and began negotiating with me. How long has it been since the 2 of us enjoyed some quality time alone together? Hubby, this is a rare opportunity. Unable to out-argue her, I could only agree to it. After comfortably soaking in the hot spring, the 2 of us sat nestled together in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, looking at the lush green mountains and brilliant red leaves. Natalie helped me adjust the bath towel draped over my shoulders, her movements patient and meticulous. Staring at those tender eyes right in front of me, a sudden sense of surrealism washed over me. Could such a deeply affectionate, harmonious, and beautiful life truly manifest within my reality? After being stared at for a while, Natalie playfully nudged my nose. What's wrong? What are you daydreaming about again? Falling silent. For a long time, I finally asked her a question. Back then, if I hadn't married you, or rather, if I hadn't entered the Vance family, would you have married someone else? No, she answered with such absolute certainty that it left me somewhat astonished. Why? Natalie wrapped her arm around my shoulder, leaning against the back of the chair, her deep, soulful eyes looking off into the distance. If it weren't an alliance with you, I would never have even harbored the thought of getting married. I knew she was speaking the truth, and I also knew she hadn't revealed the entire truth. For instance, in that first sentence, she left out the words, with anyone else, right in the middle. Aside from me, she would never marry anyone else. I had already learned the answer in my past life, so I believed it without a shadow of a doubt. Yet in this life, even though we've been married for so many years, and our children are already this big, she still keeps her secret crush on me, hidden away with absolute, flawless secrecy. I couldn't help but admire her sheer level of self-control. On the day of our two children's 6th birthday, the elder planned to host a birthday celebration banquet for them. I specially requested 2 days of leave from the school, and our family of 4 headed to the old family estate a day in advance. Seeing that the banquet was right on the verge of starting, the castle cake that had been ordered days ago still hadn't arrived. Natalie wanted to drive to the shop to inquire about it, but I refused to let her step foot outside the door, preferring to have the servants bake 2 temporary cakes instead. However, I knew. The children had been looking forward to this castle cake for a very long time, and I didn't want to leave them disappointed. The elder, who completely doted on his great-granddaughters, also spoke up, telling her to go and come back quickly, yet I still refused to agree. Natalie originally wanted to persuade me otherwise, but upon catching sight of my slightly trembling hands, and the sheer panic buried deep within my eyes, her heart softened completely as well. She set down the car keys. It's a perfectly good birthday, so what's wrong? If you don't want me to go, then I simply won't go. Cheer up a bit, all right? Only then did I slowly calm down, but I still refused to let go of her hand, because I remembered with absolute clarity that in my past life, Natalie had suffered that fatal car accident on the exact day of the children's 6th birthday. In this life, although the trajectory of the story had changed, I didn't dare to leave anything to chance. The excruciating agony of losing my absolute closest and dearest loved one was something I had already experienced once before, so this time, no matter what, I had to keep her right by my side. When they found out the castle cake couldn't be delivered, the 2 little girls both pouted their faces, holding hands as they sat on the swing in the garden, letting out continuous sighs. Chloe, who happened to return just then, saw them, and a gentle smile spread across her face. Carrying the carefully prepared gifts, she walked over to their side, fully intending to give them a surprise, only to overhear the muttering of the 2 little girls. Why, didn't Dad let Mom go pick up the cake for us? I don't know either, but since Dad forbade it, Mom is definitely going to listen to him. Forget it. Let's just have Mom buy us a new one next year instead. By then, we'll be a year older, so the castle will definitely be even prettier and bigger. Hearing this, Chloe's heart stirred slightly. What cake? Upon seeing her, the 2 little girls both threw themselves right into her embrace, calling out, "Auntie," nonstop, and then proceeded to recount the entire situation about the cake. To her in their sweet, babyish voices, Chloe nodded her head, handed the gifts into their hands, and patted their heads. "Then you 2 be good and stay home. For a little bit. Auntie will go help you pick up the cake." The little girls didn't agree immediately, but instead took her hands from both sides. "No need, Auntie." Mom said, "We'll just eat a regular cake today. If she finds out, she'll definitely be angry." "Yeah, Auntie, if you go now, you won't make it back in time to watch us blow out the candles. What if there isn't enough cake like when we were little?" Looking at their quirky, mischievous expressions, Chloe stood in a daze for a split second, almost thinking it was 2 of me standing right in front of her. The scenes of me following behind her when I was little, endlessly calling her Chloe, were things she could never forget to this day. Unfortunately, there was no turning back to the past. She closed her eyes to hide the emotion within them, forcing out a smile once more. "It's fine. Just don't tell your mom. Auntie will help pick up the cake for you, but you have to remember to secretly save a piece of the birthday cake for Auntie." After the 3 of them pinky swore to seal the agreement, Chloe took the keys and left. Right before stepping out the door, she turned her head back as if possessed, and saw me currently pulling the 2 children back into the living room. Logan still looked exactly the way he did at 20 years old, as if time hadn't left a single trace upon his body. But Chloe knew everything was completely different now. He no longer belonged to her, only after my figure disappeared behind the door. Did Chloe gloomily get into the car? The weather today was somewhat overcast and gloomy. She looked at the slowly decreasing distance on the navigation system, waiting for a traffic light. When she looked up again, a highly battered, dilapidated car suddenly drove up in the right lane, and stopped right next to her. Rolling down its window, she turned her head over subconsciously, and upon seeing that heavily emaciated, skeletal face, her gaze froze instantly. The next second, a massive force crashed violently into her, glass shards flying everywhere from the car window, and blood welled up like a geyser. Spreading faster than the excruciating pain was an endless sense of confusion and numbness. Before falling into unconsciousness, Chloe used every single shred of her remaining strength to yank off the necklace hanging around her neck. On the shattered car display screen, a song was still softly playing. To think that I once held you in my life truly breaks my heart. The news of Chloe's car accident reached me exactly 8 hours after the incident occurred. Tonight, our family was still staying at the old family estate. The 2 girls were already fast asleep, still muttering in their dreams about saving a piece of cake. My wife and I thought they were still dwelling on the castle cake, so right as we were discussing ordering a new one tomorrow, Natalie received a phone call. Her face, which had been full of smiles, turned completely serious in an instant. She swiftly threw on her clothes. My brother said Chloe got into a car accident. I'm going to the hospital to check on the situation. Logan, you stay home to accompany the children and my father. Don't make a scene about this just yet. Hearing this piece of news, I was beyond shocked. I had originally thought that as long as Natalie stayed home, she would be able to escape her tragic fate. Yet I never anticipated that Chloe would be the one to meet with disaster instead. They both suffered accidents on the exact same day, and the reason was exactly the same. Both were members of the Vance family. With all these coincidences piling up together, it couldn't help but make me begin to wonder, was this truly the unyielding will of heaven, or was someone pulling the strings? If it really was the work of destiny, then why did Chloe end up bearing the ending? That was meant for Natalie? If it was an intentional crime disguised as an accident, then who on earth could it possibly be? That harbored such a massive amount of hostility toward the Vance family. I thought about it all night long, yet I still didn't have a single lead. At dawn, I received a text message from Natalie. Resuscitation failed. There were only these 2 simple words, yet I understood the weight behind them perfectly clearly. Clenching my fists tightly, I closed my eyes, and my heart, which had been frantic all night, plunged straight into a silent abyss at this exact moment. So many years had passed, and I had actually long since let go of the past grudges toward Chloe. I merely viewed her as a distant relative. But after all, we shared over a decade of history together. So hearing the sudden news of her passing, completely out of nowhere, still left me feeling somewhat suffocated. Rather than pure heartbreak, my current emotion felt closer to a blank, helpless confusion. There was the despair over an old friend's departure, and also a lingering terror toward the absolute randomness of fate. After the funeral concluded, Natalie shared the investigation results with me. The police said it was premeditated murder. But currently, there is absolutely no information on the perpetrator. That car didn't have a license plate number, and the detective said it was likely stolen straight out of a scrapyard. The matter is still under active investigation. From the moment the accident occurred until the doctors declared the resuscitation a failure, Chloe kept clutching a necklace tightly in her hand. We don't know if it was left behind by the killer, or if it holds some other specific meaning. Hearing this, I knitted my brow slightly. A necklace? What kind of necklace? Natalie pulled out a photo taken at the hospital and handed it over for me to see. With just a single glance, I recognized this bloodstained necklace. This was the coming-of-age gift Chloe had given me, the day before my wedding with Natalie. I had ripped it off and returned it straight to her. I never imagined that after so much time had passed, she would actually still keep it. For a moment, a surge of complicated emotions welled up in my heart. Aside from this, a specific thought kept flashing through my mind continuously. Yet as to what it exactly was, I still didn't have any solid lead for the time being. Following Chloe's passing, Natalie brought the children back to the old estate every single day, to keep Elder Vance company a bit more. Everyone tactfully ceased to ever mention that name again. And in the eyes of the 2 little girls, Chloe had merely gone to a place far, far away. Likewise, not knowing when she would ever return. Every time Natalie bought a cake back, they would always save a piece and leave it in the refrigerator. Time gradually diluted the heavy atmosphere of grief in the household. As the 2 little girls grew older, they became increasingly mischievous, turning the entire house completely upside down the moment we took our eyes off them. Right as I woke up from my afternoon nap, I saw the 2 of them acting highly sneakily, hiding in a corner, currently rummaging through something. Just as I was planning to walk over and startle them, the 2 of them came running over while waving a few pages of paper. Dad, who is Al? I froze for a moment, only then noticing that the item they were holding in their hands looked exceptionally familiar. It was the love letters that Natalie had hidden away. During our 7 years of marriage, I had searched the entire bedroom but failed to find them, yet they actually ended up being discovered by these 2 children. I truly found it somewhat hilarious. I placed the items securely inside a box to store them away, and then whispered a few words into their ears. The moment Natalie returned home, the 2 little girls excitedly ran up and surrounded her completely. "Mom, who is Al? Why did you write so many letters to him?" Looking at the items in their hands, Natalie's eyelid twitched violently. Just as she was about to reach out and take them away, she heard my cough and retracted her hand. I was currently leaning against the second-floor railing, my eyes curved with a beaming smile, looking exactly like a clever, cunning fox. Just by catching sight of my expression, she knew that I must have already read the letters. When those secrets that had been buried in her heart for over a decade were finally brought to light before the world, she actually let out a sigh of relief instead. After the nanny took the children outside to play, she walked up to my side carrying the letters, and before she could even speak, I immediately cleared myself of any involvement. "Your darling daughters were the ones who dubbed them out. It has absolutely nothing to do with me." Natalie threw herself straight into my embrace, inhaling the fresh scent lingering in my hair, and let out a soft, gentle chuckle. "It was meant for my Al all along. So how can you say it has nothing to do with you?" After playing along for so long, I finally hear the truth. I raised my hand and pinched her ear, saying, "Confess right now. When did this start? Why didn't you tell me when we got married?" In front of me, Natalie could only throw up her hands and surrender. "The love letters were written when you were 17, but loving you started when I was 13. Do you still remember the year we both caught the flu? My parents were too busy with work every day, so they left me in your mother's care. You stayed in the same hospital suite as me. Since your condition was improving faster, you would come over every day to bring me medicine and candy. But because you were afraid of me, you didn't dare say a word. Even when I fell asleep, you didn't dare wake me up, just sitting by the hospital bed for an hour. By the time the medicine got cold, you had fallen asleep too. When I woke you up, the first thing you did after getting up was carry the medicine bowl away, saying that drinking cold medicine was uncomfortable, and then you ran out to ask someone to heat it up for me. I have a cold personality, and my older brothers and sisters are much older than me. Those around my age belong to a younger generation. Everyone was afraid of me, so I was always alone since childhood. Only you would greet me politely every time you saw me. Whenever you gave Chloe gifts during the holidays, you would always have her bring a share for me too. Though it was just your kindness and good manners, I remembered it for many years, and never forgot it. It's just that I knew the one you loved wasn't me, and I was so much older than you, which was why I buried these things deep in my heart. Fortunately, I finally have the chance to tell you about it now. Too much time had passed, and regarding the things Natalie mentioned, I actually couldn't remember them clearly anymore. But seeing her talk about these past events, and seeing those eyes that were as bright as a sky full of stars, I couldn't stop the urge to cry. It turned out that while I was attempting to reach out and pluck the stars, in another person's eyes, I was also the morning star that had illuminated her life. I wiped all my tears onto her clothes, speaking through my sobs. Then, every Christmas, outside my bedroom window, the Santa Claus who left the gifts was you. It was me. The suit I wore on my 18th birthday was also sent by you, mixed in with the gifts from Chloe's parents. You even guessed that. The day you heard that I wanted a marriage alliance with you, were you so happy that you completely lost your bearings? I couldn't find north, south, east, or west. The winter wind was biting and desolate. I stood all alone on the empty rooftop, feeling completely dazed. I didn't know why I was here, much less why, in the blink of an eye, I saw the 3 people I least wanted to see. Austin was holding a little girl's hand, walking up to me with an arrogant, overbearing stride. "Where is your precious daughter? Where is your precious daughter?" Those words circled in my mind like a nightmare. Terrified and bewildered, I looked around in all directions, trying to find a trace of my daughter, yet there was absolutely no sign of anyone around. Looking up again, I caught sight of a silver necklace gleaming with a cold light, stinging my eyes with sharp pain. I couldn't help but close my eyes, and when I opened them again, I broke away from the dream and returned to reality. Outside the window, the morning light was faint. The night light by the bed illuminated the calendar. Today was December 7th. In my past life, on this exact day, the kidnappers abducted my daughter and pushed her off the rooftop, and in the early hours of this day, I had dreamed of that scene back then once again. I gasped for breath heavily, wanting to wipe off the cold sweat seeping from my forehead. The slight movement of pulling my hand away woke up Natalie, who was fast asleep beside me. She opened her eyes groggily, her tone carrying a sleepy murmur. "Did you have a nightmare?" I didn't want her to worry, so I shook my head gently. "It's a bit hot. I'll turn down the AC temperature and go back to sleep. It's still early." The person beside me gave a muffled murmur, falling right back to sleep very quickly. I, however, remained unable to fall asleep for a long time. In my mind, I kept turning over the scenes from the dream again and again. But memories fade too quickly. After daybreak, the only thing I could remember was that necklace. What on earth was the meaning behind that necklace? While thinking about it, I subconsciously reached my hand up to my neck, but I didn't feel anything there. This empty feeling, however, sent a sudden shiver through me. I remembered one thing. The exact reason why I had returned the necklace to Chloe. It was because Austin had taken a liking to that necklace. He envied my life so much, and wanted to snatch away everything I possessed. So that definitely included the necklace. Before Chloe passed away, she had been clutching that necklace tightly without letting go. Was she trying to tell me that the one who caused her death was Austin? After realizing this point, I broke out into a cold shudder. Several things that had bewildered me for a very long time all became perfectly clear at this exact moment. In my past life, Austin was together with Chloe, on his path to becoming Chloe's husband. There were two massive mountains blocking his way. First was Dream and me, and second was Natalie. One occupied the legal status of Chloe's husband and daughter, while the other controlled the absolute lifeblood of the entire Vance family. So he made a vicious move, orchestrating a car accident and a kidnapping case, to eliminate both of these obstacles. And in this life, because I seized the upper hand, the trajectory of the story underwent a change. At 27 years old, Austin's parents were both dead. He was imprisoned for 6 years, and his life was an absolute mess. Having fallen to this state, once he gets out of prison, given his personality, he would definitely seek retaliation. Now Chloe is dead, and next it would be the turn for Natalie, me, as well as the children. And today just happens to be December 7th. Everything coincides perfectly with my past life. It turns out it was all a conspiracy after all. After thoroughly thinking it through, I quickly shook the person beside me awake, urging her to get up immediately. Natalie, who had just fallen asleep, was dragged along to the police precinct. The two of us, after finding the detectives responsible for the car accident case, brought up the matter of the necklace. The police quickly utilized this clue to track down Austin's whereabouts. We stayed home guarding our two children for the entire day, and around dusk, we finally received a call from the police. "Mr. Miller, based on the clues you provided, we successfully apprehended Austin and his accomplices outside the kindergarten. He has fully confessed to the criminal acts." Hearing this result, the massive mountain weighing down on my chest crumbled instantly, dissipating completely. The two daughters, completely unaware of the world's dangers, saw that my expression had relaxed, and only then did they dare to run into my arms to act cute. "Dad, I'm hungry. I want to eat sweet and sour pork ribs." "Don't make ribs for my sister. She lost a tooth yesterday, so she can't. Chew them. Let's eat shrimp instead, okay?" All day long you two think about nothing but eating. A trace of total amusement flashed through my eyes. I reached out and nudged Natalie, raising my chin to signal toward the kitchen. "The kids are hungry. Aren't you going to take the initiative?" Natalie stood up very cooperatively, but the moment she took a step, she was dragged back by the two children. "If Mom is going to cook, then let's go out to eat instead. We can have Aunt Shen make it too. I'm not eating what Mom makes. It's way too salty, way too salty." The laughter and teasing sounds of our family gradually drifted far away into the midst of the city lights illuminating one house after another. And tonight, the green mountains stretch far and wide. The floating clouds drift gently, marking the absolute finest season in the human world.